Wednesday. I'm Nick Keyser for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit theGameNashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne.
Bobby and Rex Road. Chase and Michelle.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase.
Stone Company.
Nashville's best sports talk.
Crank it up.
1025 and 1063.
Cranks it, he scores. On both sides of the one big possession.
Touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mace.
It was pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willy Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personality of all time.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With no further ado, Wild in the offensive zone. Got the big guns out with under 30 seconds left in a tie game. Spurgeon keeps it in right point. Brody in left side, puts it towards goal, and it bounces in. A double deflection. And the last deflection was off Ryan Hartman's body. 4-3 Wild with 20.4 seconds left in the third.
Oh, man. Just a brutally unlucky goal for the Predators, losing to the Minnesota Wild 4-3. A little deflection off the chest from, of course, Ryan Hartman. Of all people, Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game, and the Game Nashville app. We are live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game studios, and we are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook Sports. Willy Donick, how we doing?
Hey, Caroline, how are you? Sorry, I am not in the studio today. I walked out. I must have driven over a nail or something. Either that or there's a conspiracy against me getting to the studio today. So I hit the flat tire. It's in the shop, so I am zooming from home today.
Always good to see you, whether it's from home or whether it's in the studio.
Okay.
D-Mase is here as well. What's up, D-Mase?
What's going on, Caroline?
All right, well, let's get into it. The Predators split the games over the weekend on Saturday afternoon, against the Panthers. Everything was clicking. Offense looked great. Had 3 points from Roman Josi. Had 3 assists from Ryan McDonough. They looked good. And then on Sunday, you saw some surges, and then they fell back. You saw some surges, then they fell back, ultimately beating the Florida Panthers 7-3 on Saturday, falling to the Minnesota Wild 4-3 on Sunday. I will pose the question to you two. Do you feel any differently about this Predators team after those 2 games over the weekend than after our discussion on Friday?
Well, no, I think we knew how important those games were going to be, especially the game yesterday against the Wild. And I thought it certainly wasn't an issue of lack of effort or anything like that, that they had a great comeback after being down in the game. And as you heard Max describe, a double deflection, that's hockey sometimes. That's one where in the grand scheme of things, if you lose that game, you have to be willing to just say, look, that was a good hockey game, could have gone either way, did well to come back and give yourself a chance, and then, you get the rug pulled out from under you. But what we've been talking about the last few weeks, really, since the All-Star break and even going into it is, could they play at the level that it was going to take to meet expectations, which was make the playoffs and have a chance to win a playoff series. And so, yeah, I mean, in the big picture, they continue to be behind where that is. And they've now got, 5 games left before the trade deadline where some decisions have to be made. And so now they are 7 points back. Still with a couple of games in hand, but it's an uphill climb now for sure.
Well, that it is, Willie. Like you said, the first game they played against the Panthers, that was vintage Predators. That's what we would like to see, game in and game out. But then the next following day, you go against a team that you're in a battle with right now, I don't want to say you gave the game away at the end, but you worked so hard to put yourself in a position to at least get 1 point.
Right.
And then with 20-something seconds left, everything just falls apart. And, Minnesota ends up scoring with 4 seconds left in the game. It's indicative.
21 to be
exact.
21.
Yeah. But it's
I see what you're
indicative.
saying. But it was
it's
and that was
indicative
that's
of their
a fluky
season.
play.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
indicative
but
of their season. It's like
Yep.
1 minute you play great and they're holding out hope and the fans are like yes, and then the next following night you're down, you come back and you fight and you put yourself in a position to at least get 1 point, and then all of a sudden the rug get pulled out from under you. That's their season, inconsistent, and you're not going to make it to the playoffs if you're inconsistent.
Right. To this point, they have not played well enough to say this looks like a playoff team. And there's still 27 games left. But, with each passing week, right, you have to be real and say, is this team going to have the light go on? Are they capable of having a streak of playing at the level you'd have to play to make the playoffs at this point? The math changes every week when you have less games to work with. And so that's the time is ticking there. And, I would say if they have 27 games left, if they went 17-8 and what's the math? 17-8-2, 17-7-3, you could still get in the neighborhood there. But, they need to be at their best to do that. Right now they're still playing without Philip Forsberg. They're, leading goal scorer. We don't know when he's going to be back. I think they're going to get Alex Carrier back soon. But even with them, it's a tall order for sure. It could be done. But I think at the trade deadline, this is where David Poile, I think, has been fair to say, look, I've made the decision that we're probably not going to be buyers, right? So now the next question is, are you sellers? And if so, what's out there that could maybe improve your team for the future if that's the direction you want to go? That's what has to be made here in the next 2 weeks before the trade deadline.
And that was
you got 5 games to work with.
That was kind of my takeaway from, and I'll even extend it past just Saturday and Sunday and go all the way back to Boston. And that sample size of those 3 games, I felt like was a microcosm for this Predator season as an entirety and how this season has kind of played out. Is you get totally blown out in one game against a team that's just flat out better than you, better than most teams in the league. And then you turn it around and things look great offensively. You're able to put up 7 points, a season high, against a Florida team that's kind of in a similar spot, kind of sniffing the playoffs, but not quite in, because it's kind of been teetering in and out of the playoffs throughout the last few weeks, last few months. So you look great against that team. It looks like, okay, you really, a fire was lit under your butt, and you could tell. You could really tell. And then another game where they didn't play poorly. They didn't play outstanding, but things just didn't fall their way. And it totally was a fluky, just unlucky, happenstance at the end of the game where Ryan Hartman just pops right off of his chest and goes in. But it is what it is. That was a game where the Predators really needed those points against a team that Nashville potentially could have jumped in the standings over Minnesota. Now you're looking at, Minnesota and Calgary kind of being those teams that you're vying for against the playoffs, but those were very, very key points to make the playoffs, to potentially jump Minnesota in the standings, and you don't get those points. That, to me, is kind of the microcosm of the season, is the highest of highs and kind of the lowest of lows and things just not falling their way. So to answer the question that I posed earlier, I don't feel any differently about this team because it just feels like more of what we've seen throughout the season, consistently inconsistent from this team.
Yeah, and I think looking ahead, we were saying the Elliott Friedman line, right? Let the players decide. 7 points, whatever it's going to take to get to that. And it's unfortunate, and look, I'm not going to make excuses for them yesterday, but or really at any time, but not having Philip Forsberg too makes it even tougher, right? To say you're that team, right? You can overcome that. You need other guys to step up. Like a guy like Tommy Novak yesterday had a tremendous game to help bring them back, right? They were down and out. It was looking like they were teetering on just not having anything yesterday, and then he almost single-handedly brings them back. Roman Josi puts the team on his back, makes some plays late, and then Nino Niederreiter makes a great play to tie the game. So it was a valiant effort, but definitely without Carrier and Forsberg, you look at the two teams. I mean, that's the measuring stick. That's the team you've got to catch there in Minnesota. And they're a flawed team too. They're not world beaters, but, they look like, for the most part, the better team for most of the game yesterday. But, with Forsberg and Carrier, you could make an argument that I think Nashville is just as good as Minnesota, and it's a toss-up. And Nashville has played very well against Minnesota the last couple of years with, basically these two teams going head-to-head. But, again, time is not on the Predators' side right now with the amount of games left. So, all they can do, is show up tomorrow night, try to get a win, and go from there. But, I think the reality is the odds hurt yesterday. That was a big swing game, right? If they win that game, they're only 3 points behind the Wild with 2 games in hand, and you're really liking things. But that's the classic 4-point game where now at 7 back, you're going to need the Wild to stumble a little bit, and Calgary's in the mix too, so you're going to need them to stumble. And, stranger things have happened for sure. And as you guys know, right, with the contracts that the Predators have, a whole fire sale probably isn't in the cards, right? It's going to be almost impossible to move a lot of guys. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. But even with, I know, Phillip is out and whatnot, but even with Phillip in the lineup, this still is an inconsistent team. This still is a team that I don't have, much faith in that they're going to make the playoffs. I can see if, when Phillip's in the game and this team is winning, and then all of a sudden he's removed because of injury, then they start losing. I can see that. And I can have hope that when he comes back, this team, they're going to jump right back on the track. But even with him on the team, they're on the track, off the track, on the track, off the track. So I don't even think with him coming back, it's going to make much difference.
That's the thing is I think at this point you would need a hot streak of a 5 or 6 game winning streak to sort of get back in the conversation. And if you look on the horizon here, there's some teams that they can beat here coming up. This is what I would say on paper, and this is a dangerous thing, right? Because I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. There's upset, like Columbus just went to Dallas and won. Columbus won in Toronto and in Dallas this week. So strange things happen. The bad teams are going to catch you every now and then. But this is these next few weeks, to me, is a stretch where the Predators could win a bunch of games if they play their best. They are playing a softer portion of their schedule. Now, if you look at the last 10 to 15 games on the schedule, or I would say last 10 to 12 games, that's where it gets pretty tough. In April, they've got some tough games on the schedule. So really, they need to be jumping up over the playoff line to have a little cushion if they're going to make it. So, again, these next few weeks are huge. But 2-4 out of the break, that was not part of the script that I was looking for, right? I think we all knew that. Coming out of the break, even 3-3 would have kept you much better in the picture here. 4-2 would have been more realistic of what you were looking for, but they are where they are.
And that's what I want to get into coming up next, is this next stretch of games, but more so how important these last 3 games were for David Poyle's looming decision at the trade deadline. What these past 3 games meant for what David Poyle is going to do come March 9th, the NHL trade deadline. We'll get into that coming up next. And your phones, your calls, your texts, your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Every Wednesday at noon.
That fits the mentality of what they're going to do.
Outkick 360's Jonathan Hutton joins Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase to talk all things Titans and NFL.
Much more creative in how you go about calling certain plays.
He's got opinions and insights on the two-tone blue.
That doesn't mean that you can't have great or don't need great quarterback play.
Catch Hutton every Wednesday at noon on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 $1,000 for certified professionals. In addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses, we will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
Hi guys, it's Mark with Hillside Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we have a major medical advancement that has helped thousands of men. Our wave technology is backed by 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge University. It's been shown to increase blood flow by repairing blood vessels. No pills and no side effects. If you're ready to put a stop to your ED, call us now, and not only will the assessment and blood flow ultrasound be free, but will also include something unique that produces powerful results in the bedroom. You're going to love that one, guys. Trust me. This unprecedented offer is worth $600, but it's free to those who call in the next 2 minutes. Call 615-576-5000. That's 615-576-5000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your life back. Call Hillside Medical Clinic now to qualify. 615-576-5000.
Hey, it's Jared with my friends at Hiller. Kick off the new year with new upgrades for your home. This month, when you buy something you need for your home, Hiller will give you something you want. Pick your prize. Get a free 55-inch TV, Apple iPad, Solo Stove, or Nintendo Switch when you purchase new whole home generators or select new HVAC systems. Or a free 55-inch TV, Nintendo Switch, or Solo Stove when you upgrade to a new tankless water heater. There's no better time to take care of necessary home replacements, so call Hiller. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Hey, are you seeking relief? Maybe you just want to enhance your day or night. Did you know there are legal THC products available right here in Tennessee? Yeah, really. You can have legal THC products shipped directly to the comfort of your home. Yes, comfort in cannabis is only a website away. Visit greentreescompany.com. That's Green Trees with a Z, and change your life today.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. Having some fun in the midday.
Okay, that's really fun.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
It's a good source of energy because it's live.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Some teams are obviously buyers, other obviously sellers. And still others are right there on the bubble. Does that list include the Nashville Predators?
Yeah, they've not decided yet what they are, but the clock is ticking. And here's what I would say from making a few calls today is that the next set of games, Thursday night against Boston, this weekend against Florida, and especially Sunday against Minnesota, those are huge games which could impact the trade deadline decisions for the Nashville Predators and GM David Poile. If they don't get on a heater like right now to salvage their playoff chase, I'm told that David Poile will be ready to listen to almost anyone on his roster if he feels that his team has no chance to make the postseason, whether that's Duchesne or Johansson or Ekholm or Granlund. I think he'll be in a position to listen on a lot of his players. That's if they don't get on a heater here. We'll see how they respond.
There you go. That was Pierre LeBrun last week ahead of the Boston Bruins game. And of course, and he says, okay, David Poile says, and this isn't just Pierre LeBrun bringing this out of nowhere. Like, Pierre LeBrun has sources on this. That those 3 games, Boston, Florida, Minnesota, were very key in what would drive David Poile's decision to do at the trade deadline. He said, if they don't get on a heater right now, David Poile is ready to sell. Well, they go 1-2 in that stretch. Don't look good against Boston, look great against Florida, and then fall to Minnesota, a team that you really needed to beat, a team that you needed to get points against. So that, to me, indicates if David Poile was going to take that sample size of 3 games and make his decision based off of those 3 games, I think that's your decision right there. I think that those 3 games absolutely should have shown David Poile that you need to sell at the trade deadline. The tricky part about it is Pierre LeBrun lists out 4 players that David Poile will be willing to take calls on. Really anybody, but those 4 specifically. I think that's key there, that he lists those 4 players: Johansson, Duchesne, Granlund, Ekholm. I don't think that those are going to be very easy contracts to move away from. I don't think those are attractive contracts for any team to trade for. So I think that these 3 games absolutely show what this franchise should do moving forward. But what are you going to do about it? It's like you're stuck with these contracts, but you understand and know what this team needs to do in order to get better. But I don't think you can do those things in moving on from Johansson, moving on from Duchesne.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching this movie yesterday, The Show, and it turned out to be a really good show. And the premise was, this family or families, they ride into this town, and unbeknownst to them, they can't get out. It's just no matter which direction they turn, no matter where they go, how long they drive, they are basically stuck in this city, in this little bitty town. Now, it's a show, so I didn't get a chance to watch it all, but to me, that's indicative of where the Nashville Predators are at now. They're in a show right now where they can't get out of, and they're stuck in a sense. And nothing has changed. It's been consistently inconsistent. And yes, you want to have a fire sale, but who's buying? Who's going to buy those players at those contracts? Maybe Ekholm, yeah. Maybe Granlund, yes. But the other two, I don't know. So to me, it's almost like you want to take pennies on a dollar. That's what you're going to be forced to do. Because if you don't do something with this team, you're going to keep having the same results. We done went through basically 2 coaches with the same results. And you know why? Because the same players are on the team for the most part. The same players are on the team, so you're having the same results. And if you do it again next year, and don't change nobody, you're going to have the same damn results again. That's just the way it is. So you're going to have to figure out, listen, are we going to rip the Band-Aid off quickly, or are we going to continue to slow peel this thing and make the fans agonize, sit there and wonder, where is this team headed? Up until this point, I wasn't with the ripping the Band-Aid off, but I think they're there. Just rip it off and move on.
It's time. They showed you what they are.
Well, I think you've got 5 games to make an impression if you're in that locker room. So let's look at the different perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. I think if you're sitting there and you're David Poile, I think you never want to base your decision based on where one game goes, right? So let's take what Pierre said. By the way, Pierre definitely has the pulse, right? He I would put right up there, maybe just a little bit behind Elliot Friedman as the 2 best that have the pulse of what's going on around the league. But I think as a GM, it's probably not smart to say, well, if we win this game, I'm selling. And if we win this game, I'm buying. If we lose this game, I'm selling. It's really about the big picture. It's like what are you, right? What is the team showing? And so I think that's the question for David Poile is he can still wait for 5 more games before he makes that decision. But right now, as he sits, there's no question the 1 and 2 over the weekend wasn't good enough to really move the ball forward to try to meet the expectations for this year. Now, if they turn around and won the next 5, then maybe you'd have to give it a second thought. And so now we turn our attention to the locker room with the players and the coaches, right? I don't think any player walks in and says, you know what, I really hope today, since we lost on Sunday, I really hope we become sellers, right? That's not how a player works. That's not how a coach works, right? That was a really tough loss yesterday, and it hurt. There's no question about it, especially the way it happened in the final minute like that on a really bad bounce, unlucky. But you got no choice to come back and see if you can do something about it tomorrow. So the players have to keep going, right? They can still try to achieve the goal. So you've got 5 games to make that impression. So I don't think it's one of these, well, you got to show me this weekend or it's it. But it's a 54-game picture, right? That's really what they are over 54 games. They're a team that's 26, 22, and 6. And so you have to ask yourself, can that group of guys go 17, 8, and 3 or 18, 7, and 3 to get to that 95, 97-point range? That would be realistic. They've got to play at a higher clip than they've played for the first 54 games. So that's really the question. It's not just what happened over the weekend. You see what I'm saying?
It is beyond more than over the weekend, but I think this is looking at it from a 54-game perspective.
Oh, I know. No, I'm agreeing with you on
Yeah.
that. You have to look at what you are over the course of the game, and could it change, right? And now the players, their attitude, and Derek, you're a competitor. You go in there and you believe, absolutely, yeah, we could rip off 5 in a row. We just got to get it going, right? And that's the only choice you have as a player. That's how a player is wired. That's how a coach is wired. That's how a team is wired. But the GM has got to make the decision. He's got to be the realistic guy, right? He can't just be, he can't be unrealistic about what the team is. But the team can still believe. There's been plenty of stories in sports over the years of a team that looked like they were dead and buried, and then they come back to life and do well. For example, there's 28 games left. 2 years ago, a team that I don't think was as deep or as talented as this team is this year, it's pretty comparable, right? The Predators 2 years ago, they won 20 out of the last 28. A lot of people are wondering how in the heck they did it, but they did it, right? They won 20 out of 28 and made the playoffs, and that was a nice little finish to the season. Now, can this team do that or something just below that? I don't know. It doesn't look like it, but I think we would all have said that team 2 years ago didn't look like they could do that, So that's the mystery of sports. That's why we love sports.
Yeah.
Every time it looks one way, it's not what it appears sometimes.
I mean, you're absolutely right in that, but that was 2 years ago. This is a much different team now. These guys are 2 years older. Their perception or their outlook may have changed in the last 2 years. I'm not saying that they don't want to go out there and win, but something has changed over the last 2 years where this team doesn't look, from a competitive standpoint, consistent. Even if they went out and lost games, they don't look consistent in losing those games, if that makes any sense. Because
right, but I would tell you that it looked very much like that 2 years ago at this point. Now it was a little bit of a strange season, but I think it happens in a lot of seasons. But I would have told you that team in mid-March, because remember everything was pushed back because of COVID and the way they had to push the schedule back. But it was about mid-March when they were entering the last 28 games. I would have said there's no way. I mean, it just didn't look like it was going to happen at all. And then all of a sudden it happened. They had all of.
But now you got your major guy hurt. Philip Forsberg's hurt. So if you're saying, okay, the next 5 games we need to see where this team is at. Well, without their best player, I can tell you where they're at. They're not in a good place. They're not.
And I don't know if he'll miss all those games, but we'll see. I think we got.
But even if he comes back, he still got to get into the flow of a game. Missing 3 or 4 games, you still got to get into the flow of the game.
It's unlikely. Let's be honest, right? Mm-hmm. We got to be real. It's unlikely that they could put that run together. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, as a team, as a player.
Oh yeah, you're going to believe that you
got to try to believe. You got to fight to believe that you can have a turn. And if you don't believe, then you absolutely won't make it.
And that's the player's job. They absolutely should believe. You absolutely should go out there every single night and play like you are playing for, the ultimate pursuit for the playoffs. That is the player's job. But looking at it from David Poyle's point of view, at these next 5 games, are wins over Vancouver and San Jose and Arizona, is that going to make you change your mind about what you should do at the trade deadline? Because
it depends on what happens with Minnesota and Calgary too. Like if Calgary and Minnesota were to lose 3 in a row or something, I mean, things happen for sure. But I understand your point, Caroline, and it's true. I think, and this is where I think David Poyle over the years, he's been in all of these positions, right? He's had a team that's been loaded and he's ready to buy. He's had teams that absolutely needed to be sellers and did, and then he's been in these in between situations. But I think he's a pretty good realist when you get down to it. Mm-hmm. The bigger question is what Pierre is kind of talking about is, all right, you'll listen to offers for anybody, but what are the offers, right? What real moves do you have to make? Because, it's not like you just could pick up the phone and say, okay, I'm going to get 3 or 4 first-round picks for some of these guys because of the contract situation. That's probably not realistic either.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. I see your phones. We are right to those coming up next. It's Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
This is Colton Sissons, and this is Smashville.
Feeds now, Sissons coming on from the left circle, and Colton Sissons puts it in the net.
This is the flagship of the Nashville Predators radio network. ESPN 1025, The Game.
Now is a fantastic time to sell in Nashville, but you can't do it without the intel. And no one has better intel than the Gary Ashton team. You may be wondering, what is this intel I keep hearing about? Intel so you can sell your home without any staging or showings. Intel on where to find your next home so you can sell your current one while the market's hot. Intel that helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity now. Everyone else is getting the same information and competing for the same properties. GaryAshton.com gives you the edge with the best real estate intel in Nashville. No one else even comes close. Plus, the Gary Ashton team is the official real estate agent for the Preds. Get the confidence to sell your home and find your dream address without the stress. Call the Gary Ashton team with RE/MAX Advantage today at 615-301-1650 or visit GaryAshton.com. And remember, don't sell without the intel.
Hey, if you think mortgage rates are still super high, think again. The rates have plummeted to a 5-month low. And so it's time to check in at Loan Pronto to see how low the rates are. Listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto, wipe out all those credit cards, close in about 14 days, and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. If that sounds good to you, because that's money in your pocket, you need to call Loan Pronto right now, 615-499-5780. Right now, they're doing refis with APRs in the 4s. So if you've got a 6% home rate or a 7% home rate, don't waste any time, because the quicker you call, the quicker you'll start saving money on a monthly basis. And then you can attack the bills that you have to pay, credit cards, car loans, whatever the case may be. So get those credit cards to zero. Start that home improvement project. Get back into the housing market if that's what you're looking for. It's Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Did you know women only make up 14% of all engineers in the U.S.? Play Like a Girl is creating a more equal playing field by ensuring that every girl reaches her full potential. Help introduce a girl to engineering by becoming a mentor, donor, or volunteer. Learn more at iplaylikeagirl.org/mentor.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of Chase and Michelle, we will discuss the Predators as they take on Vancouver, and Max Hertz will join us at 9:45 for the Daily Power Play. The fun all starts at 9 a.m.
Hey, Nashville, this is Eli Gold, voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 1025, The Game.
Just a case of them being that much better than you? I mean, it's the best team in the league. Are they that much better, or were there some mistakes made on your part tonight?
I think there was a lot of execution left out there by us, lack of it. You know, we see a lot of missed passes, some odd man rushes where you'd like to generate something and we don't. There's a willingness and a price to pay, if you want to win in this league, and certainly that team was doing it consistently throughout the game. Just being disciplined, putting pucks behind us, wearing us down that way, taking what's given if there was an opportunity on odd man, and certainly, didn't give us anything for free. And so I think that's the difference in the game. They win the special teams, and obviously 5-on-5. So it's tough to find a way to win games when you're kind of lacking in all those areas.
There you go. That was Ryan McDonough after the Bruins loss. And I really do think that lit a fire under this team. That they heard that Ryan McDonough is a leader on this team. He said, look, we just didn't play well enough. There are too many passengers on this team. And you could tell the difference against Florida on Saturday. That looked like a team that was motivated. That looked like a team that wanted to prove something. Ryan McDonough even said it after the game on Saturday night. He was like, look, we had no passengers today. And that's the difference. We all pulled our own weight. We all contributed against Florida, and you could tell the difference. The very disconcerting thing with that, though, is you turn around the next day and you didn't see that same fire. It's the same thing going back to after the loss to St. Louis, at St. Louis. You have the team meeting. You saw the difference that it made across 3 games. That looked like a different team. You come back after the All-Star break and you totally lay an egg against Vegas. So it's this constant cycle of, you get down in the dumps, you get re-energized, you can tell a difference, and then it's very short-lived and you plateau yet again. So that's why I think, that these 3 games, per Pierre LeBrun, was so important to David Boyle because this is when it really mattered most. And continuing to push it back and say, okay, let's look at these next 3 games. Let's look at these next 5 games. Let's give them more of an opportunity. I think is just delaying the inevitable of trying to decide what this team is. I think that this team has already shown you what it is, and it's just not quite good enough to compete.
Well, you can.
In fairness, I thought the issues yesterday certainly weren't anything close to what you saw against Boston, where you just had a team that was uninspired. I thought they really played hard yesterday. They were outplayed. In fairness, if you look at the stats, you got to be honest. Minnesota outplayed the Predators for the first 2 periods and had a lead. But you got to give the Predators some credit for fighting and finding a way to get back in the game and give themselves a chance to win it late. So I didn't think that was an issue of a team that wasn't engaged or some of the things that Ryan McDonough was challenging them with on Thursday. I thought that was just a tough loss, to a team that was just better than you on that day and then got a little lucky at the end of the game. So, but again, you go back, you pull back and say, now you've played 54 games of your schedule. So what are you, right? You dug a hole early. Started to play a lot better. Now you've got a couple of key guys missing. Hopefully you'll get them back soon. That's a big part of the question going forward. But you've got 5 games before you've got to make some decisions, right? We said it before the break ended that March the 3rd on the trade deadline, that's the next marker that you got to make some decisions, right? Do you want to try to make some moves that might make your team better down the road as opposed to stay standing pat or adding? Right, we've pretty much ruled out adding at this point. So is it more standing pat, or are there some moves you could make that are more pointed towards down the road?
Let's get your thoughts on it. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Rob is up next. What's up, Rob?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it. Is there any scenario that you can paint where you can unload a Duchesne or a Johansson for even if we gulp a bit of the contract value, because they're highly inconsistent and they're not $8 million players right now. So is there a scenario where, let's say, a top contender needs a center or a winger, and we would offload them, maybe get a 2nd or 3rd draft pick back, but offload also by saying we would pick up $3 or $4 million of their salary for X amount of years. Is there any scenario like that?
Yeah, thanks for your call, Rob. I think the only way that I would see that is if the Predators do absorb some of the salary, but even still, I don't know how attractive of trading partners the Predators would be with Duchesne and Johansson.
Well, you would be.
Seattle didn't take them for free.
As I said earlier, you'd be trading pennies on a dollar.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can trade them, but don't expect much back from these guys. Those 2 guys in particular, because of their play, because of the contract. So I don't see how, you get out of a situation that you're in, other than unless you basically, in a sense, take pennies on a dollar.
And you're right, Derek. I think that's the reality. And so what Rob proposed there is you could absorb 50%, up to 50% of somebody's salary. So for Ryan Johansson, that would be 2 years remaining at an $8 million per year. So you would be shouldering $4 million of cap space next year and $4 million the following year. So you would be paying for a guy that isn't on your team anymore. And so for Duchesne, it would be 3 more years after this one, the remainder of this year, and then 3 more seasons at $8 million per year. And so that's $4 million off the top of your salary cap before. But it does free up a little bit of space, right? It gives you a little bit of room, and it gives you that roster spot to maybe try a younger player if you're going in a different direction. But I think even if you do that, you're probably still not going to get hardly anything back, right? It would be just to clear the space off of your roster there. And so I don't know if they would consider that. And the other part of it is, does somebody want to take Matt Duchesne for this year and then 3 more years? or Ryan Johansson this year and then 2 more years, even at $4 million. That's really just as big of a question, right? Because teams don't have a lot of room on their salary cap. I would be really, really stunned if that happened at the trade deadline this year. But I think as time goes by and you get into the offseason, if this team doesn't make the playoffs, right, you're going to look to retool and do things like that, try to get creative, even if you have to take it a little bit and you're not, like you said, Derek, pennies on the dollar.
And the key part of that, too, is trying to find a trade partner. Because even if you take, let's say, maximum.
Somebody needs to want them. Yeah.
Exactly. Even if you take off the maximum $4 million a year for each of them, there's another team that's still got to be willing to pay each of them $4 million across 2 to 3 years, whether it's Johansson or Duchesne, for 2 underperforming, inconsistent, aging forwards. And they've shown they have it. They can have it sometimes, but then sometimes they really don't. So how much is that worth to a team? And you got to have a trade partner in order to do that. Would you be willing to bite the bullet, take the $4 million a year, and for not great assets? Maybe just to get those off the books and to be able to develop some of these younger forwards. If you do want to get younger, clear up some spots for Duchesne and or for some of those younger guys that you would get by trading Johansson and Duchesne. But again, you got to have a trade partner, and I don't know how attractive those two look.
Well, I think the only thing you can hope for right now is if someone sees something in these two guys where they can be an asset to somebody's team, a team that has some things in place and that can use a Johansson or a Duchesne. They don't have to be the main guys, but they're like, final pieces of a puzzle. Or if those guys start playing well the next few games and you try to parlay that into a trade. So it's just, because of the hard salary cap and, whatnot, it's great that they get these guaranteed contracts, but this is what you run into, when you have situations like this where you can't move an individual because of the salary cap and because of how the NHL is structured. Well, you're stuck with these guys. It's like, okay, we can roll the dice, and yes, we can have, 4 great years with these guys or 6 great years, but then again, we can roll the dice, and we can have 2 great years and 4 bad years, and we're stuck. Nothing to do. We got to keep them.
Greg texts into the text line, phone lines @ScannyHunter.com, says Matt Duchesne has a modified no trade clause. No team is taking that. That's also a fair thing to point out. That Duchesne, just for what you would have to sacrifice to get Duchesne versus the production that he likely would give you, I don't know if that's really attractive to any general manager.
Yeah, but if you're getting him at $4 million, that's a heck of a lot different than getting him for $8 million.
For sure.
That's definitely something to consider. If you're a team that feels like you're 1 score away, where he doesn't have to maybe carry the load. I'm just theorizing here. This is all hypothetical because I think it's much more likely that he stays in Nashville, right? But I do think the 50% thing is maybe the one area where you might be able to find something in the coming years. Right? It might even be this year, but you're right. The no trade clause definitely complicates that. I don't know when that kicks in. It's the latter portion of the deal. I don't remember if it kicks in next year or the year after, something like that. But in the meantime, you saw over the weekend. And in fairness, Duchesne, Johansson, Granlund, they were pretty good on Saturday, right? Pretty good on Saturday. Yesterday, battled, not quite there against Boston, overmatched, right, by the top players against Boston. But and again, those 3 are without Forsberg having to really shoulder the load at forward. And they're showing you what they are right now. Last year, for all 3 of them, collectively, they were way better for the entire season than they have been this year. And that's part of the reason where they're behind. They're behind in the standings where they are.
Last year, they earned those contracts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just looking at, a 54-game sample size for this entire team as a whole, but a 54-game sample size for these individual pieces. Because Duchesne and Johansson each have showed you flashes so far this season. Duchesne in those 3 games after the Blues loss and going into the break, he looked great.
He was fantastic.
He was fantastic. So it's there. But it's not getting it consistently. So looking at a 54-game sample size, Duchesne's just not giving you what you need. But coming up next, We'll continue to get into your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a Predators thought. But how do we think ownership views this team and where it's at right now? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Welcome to Smashville, home of your Nashville Predators. Join us at Bridgestone Arena Tuesday, February 21st for College Night with the University of Alabama as your Nashville Predators take on the Vancouver Canucks. Purchase your College Night tickets today at NashvillePredators.com/College Nights. That's NashvillePredators.com/College Nights for a Preds and Alabama co-branded hats. And don't miss February 28th as your Nashville Predators take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Secure tickets at NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Let's go, Preds!
Do you own or operate a diverse small business? Expand your customer reach and access local procurement decision makers at the Nashville Area Chamber's Supplier Diversity Fair, sponsored by Truist. All diverse small businesses are invited. The fair begins at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, February 28th at City Winery. Visit NashvilleChamber.com/events to register. That's NashvilleChamber.com/events. See you on the 28th at City Winery. Looking for a career with purpose or have that passion for youth development? Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee provides a safe place where youth gain the tools to learn, lead, and reach their full potential. And that starts with you, offering competitive pay and free after-school care for employees. Learn more at bgcmt.org.
Hey, it's John Tesh. You want to know how to get better rates, better coverage, and better service on your home and auto insurance? Work with Zander Insurance. I know it's a big promise, but this team delivers. They've been around for almost 100 years and have earned the privilege of representing dozens of insurance companies so they can shop, compare, and find you the best options available. More options mean more savings, and in many cases, better coverage. But it doesn't stop there. Each year, they review your coverage to make sure your rates stay competitive. Nobody else does that. And when it comes to service, just check out their ratings. Zander is one of the top agencies in the industry, and they earned that spot with their commitment to making sure their clients are taken care of like family. That's what sets them apart. Go to Zander.com for quick online quotes or call 800-356-1780 for that personal touch that you've been missing.
He's got big takes.
It's not that freaking hard. Hand the ball to Henry.
Small takes.
You have to defend your decision.
But all takes.
They win, they lose. Just invested a lot into this game. I thought it was the worst press conference.
He is Jared Stillman.
I guess I'm just not a very good coach, Jared.
Weekdays from 2 to 6, Stillman and Company. Presented by TriStar Moving on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Having some fun in the midday.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
David said at his end-of-the-year press conference that he's got the full support of ownership. Fans obviously want to see success. What is it about David that you believe in to keep him in that position?
Well, he's certainly got the track record. He's a known quantity. He's been doing this. He's won more games than any other GM in history. We're executives. I've got a lot of expertise in healthcare. If you ask me a healthcare question, I'll tell you what to do, but I understand what I don't know about hockey and the ins and outs and long-term contracts and player assessments. And yeah, you have opinions as fans, but it's become particularly important in this situation where we've got 10 families with an ownership stake and 17 individuals that attend our ownership meetings. Everyone has opinions. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't hire any of them, with all due respect, to be my general manager. I mean, we've come to appreciate that while we all have opinions, David's the hockey expert in the room, and I want him to hear our opinions. But at the end of the day, he's got to make those calls, and he's got to make those decisions. And it's not something that we should be doing, or even if we could.
There you go. Those Predators controlling owner Herb Fritch in June of 2022. So coming off the end of last year's season, a full endorsement of David Poile. And the tricky thing here of trying to predict what the Predators franchise will do. We can say all day long what we think that they should do, our opinions of what should come next.
Yeah.
But the realistic situation is, what are they going to do? At least we can kind of get a little bit of a pulse from David Poile. He sat down with Robbie and Rexroad last week, said not buyers, could be sellers. Of course, we heard from Pierre LeBrun saying it depends on the Boston, Florida, and Minnesota games. So we at least have a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of what David Poile is thinking. What we don't know is how ownership feels about this season, how ownership feels about the way that things are going, the drafting, how ownership feels about David Poile based off of this season alone. We heard from Herb Fritch at the end of last season. How may that have changed? Do you think ownership has a good pulse on the fan base and how frustrated and disappointed this fan base is? Because if not, the direction that ownership decides to go is, kind of a mystery at this point.
Yeah, it is. You heard it last year, and I mean, he said it. Listen, I'm gonna leave the hockey stuff to David, and I know about healthcare, but David knows hockey, and everyone else that's a part of this group. He basically said, I wouldn't hire them to be my GM. It'd be David. So with that being said, I don't see, anything changing when it comes to the GM. I would honestly, based on that, and I know people can change, I get it, but based on that, I would be surprised if David is not the GM next year. I would be, going into next season. Now, what David has to try to figure out is, how do we make this team better under this circumstance, meaning these contracts? He's been doing it a long time, so I'm sure he has 7 different scenarios that he can, sort of pull from. But he better do it quick, because this fan base they're speaking loud, and they're upset.
Yeah. They're unhappy.
Exactly. So whatever you do, you better do it very quickly, because if you don't and it continues this way, then you're gonna have to feel the brunt of it.
Well, on the fans being frustrated, to me, that's a good thing. That's the mark of a good fan base. And I think if you look around the league, I think the fan bases are frustrated in all of the markets where you're falling short of expectations. And then you've got a whole nother level. Let's just take Toronto, a really good team that's loading up. You saw what they did over the weekend, guys. They plucked somebody else from the Blues. They picked up Cal O'Reilly. The Blues have a lot of expiring. Why do I keep saying Cal O'Reilly? His brother is Cal O'Reilly. I didn't make that guy up. He actually used to play for the Predators a long time ago, so I'm still stuck in whatever year that was, 2011 or something like that. But anyway, Ryan O'Reilly on the expiring contract, the Blues are selling off, so the Toronto trades for him. So they're going all in. The Blues have not won a playoff series since 2004. 2004. So that's going way, way back. Derek was in the prime of his career, a 1,300 receiver in 2004.
Toronto?
Right? Toronto. They have not won a playoff series since 2004.
Uh-huh.
So they're loaded, but they have not won in the playoffs. So you want to talk about a frustrated fan base, right? They go nuts up there. So that's the mark. A good franchise that has great passionate fans. And by the way, the crowd on Saturday for the Predators game, fantastic crowd, full to the gills, kids everywhere, having a great time. That was a lot of fun. We have built a great passionate fan base. The ownership group is to be commended for that. And when you're not playing as well as you like, you should be frustrated, right? That's part of sports. And so the question is, as an owner or an ownership group, and Herb is the leader of the group right now. And remember, the whole other thing that's going on is in the coming years, Bill Haslam is going to start coming into the picture, and he will be the guy that eventually takes over the leadership position of that group. And so how he feels is going to be part of this equation too, going forward, right? But you measure that, but you do. I think Herb did a good job in there of just putting it in perspective, right? Everybody's frustrated if you're not winning the cup. There's really only one team, and probably realistically, 6 or 8 other teams that probably had an overachieving season that say, you know what, we didn't win the cup, but man, that was a lot of fun, and we probably did everything we could to have a great season this year. Other than that, you got a lot of frustrated fans, and that should be part of it, right? That's part of a good fan base.
And that's exactly what I told Derek at the break. I said it's a good problem to have when your fans are upset. Because if you're underperforming and nobody's upset, then you have a problem because nobody cares. So I think the Predators are in a good spot.
And that's the thing. They show up, right? They're upset, but they're showing up at the games for the most part, right? They're still drawing pretty well. It's not like they have a half-empty building like they've had in some buildings around the league because that's the sign of apathy, right? So that's, again, a vibrant fan base that's coming in. They're frustrated. They're hungry for success, and they're expressing that, but they're showing up at the games. I love that.
Yeah, it's a good thing for your fans to be disappointed when you're not reaching expectations because they care. But I think I look at it like I fear if there may come a day, if the Predators continue to go down the same cycle of the last few years, if you get in the playoffs and then you lose in the first round, that fans are just going to become checked out of this team because it seems like the same thing every single year. And if the team doesn't make changes or make big moves to at least say, hey, look, we're trying. We want to be better. We're going to do what it takes to become a better hockey team. If fans continue to see this team do the same thing year over year over year, and maybe even take steps backwards, yet not make moves to at least try to make steps forward and become a better team year over year, then fans are going to start checking out. I think that's just kind of the reality of sports.
Let's be fair, though. How many teams really aren't trying to make the moves that they feel are best for the franchise? I mean, I think last year what they tried, like everybody jokes with me about the plan, right? Part of my frustration with the plan is I felt like they were pretty clear what they were doing for a couple years, trying to get younger, and then last year they felt, hey, if we add a couple pieces, we can be better. And it hasn't happened, right? The plan hasn't worked, right? But there was a plan there. And then at the end of the season, they'll have to reassess where they are. But I think it's just important to know what you are. Be realistic about where the team is. But everybody's trying, right? I don't think it's like we don't care whether we win or not. I think they're doing the very best that they're making the decisions they feel are the best for the franchise. Now, I think a lot of people are frustrated. They're like, let's try some new ideas. Let's try something different. I get that for sure, but it's never about not trying to be the most successful franchise you can be. It's not a lack of effort.
No, and you're right, Willie. But listen, I don't claim to know, the ins and outs of hockey, but I do know a winning team when I see a winning team, or a team that's just inconsistent when I see it, or a bad team when they're bad. Well, this team is trending more toward bad than good, and that's disappointing for the fans, and I know that's disappointing for everybody in that building. So whatever they choose to do, that's going to be on them. But one thing I do know is this is not a good team. Just like I said I said the same thing about the Titans. The Titans were not a good team the last 8 games of the season. This Predator team, the way they are looking, they are not a good team as they sit. They're an inconsistent team, and that's not going to get you anywhere in this league when you're inconsistent. So they got to figure it out.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll sit down with D-Mase, our draft guru, and look at who the Titans could potentially target with their first-round pick. We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
You love the game.
The Doors on the board. Touchdown at TSU.
We live the game.
Going up against that defense, he can make some plays and take that next step.
We are
a gunny performance.
Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game. Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
You can trek through the savannas of Africa. Wait on the magic moment on the Great Plains of North America. Or find the thrills of Patagonia. You can book your dream hunt at the SEI Convention, coming to Nashville for the very first time. Come find your adventure February 22nd through February 25th. It's the ultimate sportsman's market, a place for every hunter. And this year, it's happening Music City style, with sold-out performances by Big and Rich and Leonard Skinner. But you can still find your outdoor adventure and rock out with the Frontman with Gretchen Wilson. It's a celebration of the outdoor lifestyle, February 22nd through February 25th. Come find your adventure. Just log on to safariclub.org. One more time, that's safariclub.org. This convention will sell out, so reserve your spot today. Come find your adventure.
Hey, you think mortgage rates are still super high? Well, think again. Rates have plummeted to a 5-month low. Hey, Willy Donick here. Call my friends at Loan Pronto now to see how low rates are. It may be time to do that refinance you've been putting off, or time to get back to house hunting. If you're like a lot of people, you've got way too much credit card debt right now, and you're getting fleeced with 20+% interest charges every month, or maybe your current home rate is over 6%. So if that applies to any of you, listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto. Wipe out all those cards. Close in about 14 days and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. How does that sound to you? Right now, Loan Pronto is doing refis with APRs in the 4s. So call now to take advantage of this big rate drop. Get those credit cards to zero. Start that home improvement project, or get out of that 7% loan you were forced into last year. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Nashville's best deal of the week is Bavarian Beer House at Opry Mills. Bavarian Beer House, Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, is full of fun, food, music, and most importantly, beer. Enjoy traditional German bratwurst, schnitzel, giant pretzels, and more in an Oktoberfest-inspired space. Visit BeerHouseNashville.com for their live music schedule. Get a $50 gift card for half off right now at thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last.
Your Game Center update.
The Nashville Predators split their back-to-back this weekend against the Florida Panthers and the Minnesota Wild. Nashville finds themselves 7 points outside the playoffs with 28 games remaining. Former Pred Ryan Hartman tipped in a puck with 20 seconds remaining in regulation on Sunday to seal the win for Minnesota.
Spurgeon keeps it in right point. Brody in left side, puts it towards goal, and it bounces in. A double deflection, and the last deflection was off Ryan Hartman's body. 4-3 Wild with 20.4 seconds left in the third.
And over in NASCAR, it was Memphis native Ricky Stenhouse Jr. who won the Daytona 500 yesterday. Stenhouse Jr. broke his 199 race winless streak in Cup Series play. And the Vanderbilt men's basketball team has now won 5 in a row. With 4 games remaining in the regular season, they'll head down to Baton Rouge and take on LSU on Wednesday. I'm Nick Keyser for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. WPUC HD2 Laverne, broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 1025 and 1063.
1, 2, 3, 9. I think it was a good game. Had a couple of big plays.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
Who is pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willy Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personality of all time.
On 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With no further ado,
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game, and the Game Nashville app. We are live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios, and we are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook Sports. We've got our resident draft guru, film guru, D-Mase over here. So D-Mase, you've picked 5 wide receivers in this year's draft to break down.
Yes, I did. I picked 5 guys, 2 who are UT guys. Obviously, I had to put those 2 guys in the bunch of 5. So I got 2 UT guys, 1 Michigan State guy. Obviously, I had to put him in there. Go green, go white. And then who I feel are the 2 best receivers at this point, because now, going into the combine, things will change. Individual workouts, things will change. But for the most part, these, to me, are the top 2 wide receivers in Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison. USC is Jordan Addison, and then TCU is that's Ohio State, Jackson Smith. Njigba, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Njigba. Yeah.
Yes. But let's start with
But before we get into it, though, I want to ask you, when you're watching film, when you're breaking wide receivers down, what do you look for?
For one, I look for, how do they get off the line of scrimmage? Are they fluent and are they quick at getting off the line of scrimmage? Because even though in college they're not playing but much bump and run, I think once you get in the NFL, the guys are going to be a little bit closer to you, especially if they find out that you can't get off the line of scrimmage or you struggle to get off the line of scrimmage. Then they're going to crowd that line of scrimmage even more, those defensive backs. But how do you get off the line of scrimmage? How do you get in and out of your routes? How do you read the defense? Can you read the defense on the run from zone to man, man to zone? Because a lot of teams do that. They show you one thing, and then once the ball is snapped, they switch into another coverage. So you, as a receiver, you have to be able to read that. And then also for me, you have to know all positions. You got to be able to play all positions. I don't want, a guy that's just a one-trick pony, a guy that I just put outside and he can only run certain routes. No, I want to have a guy that if I want to put him outside, I can put him outside. If I want to put him in the middle of the field at the slot position, I can do that. I like Jamar Chase, Jefferson, guys like that, T. Higgins that I can put in the inside or the outside. Traylon Burks, I can put him outside. I can put him inside. I can run reverse. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I want to see the versatility in you, which tells me, too, that you can pick up on a playbook very quickly. Because if I'm telling you, hey, listen, here's the playbook, but you got to know you're going to be our primary X, which is the guy on the ball. But you got to also learn the H, which is the slot receiver, or they can call him the Y, whichever one, or whatever letter they want to give him. For us, it was the H. Or you can be the Z. So I'm going to task you to learn all 3 positions. And if you can learn all 3 positions, that's a big plus. I remember when I first came into the league, they gave me the playbook and said, well, you're the X, but you got to learn the slot position as well. You got to know all positions, basically. So I had to spend my time knowing all the positions, not just the X, but I had to know the H, I had to know the Z, I had to know the Y, because in any given time, I can be one of those 4 guys. But I was able to pick up on it very quickly. So to me, those are the things that I look for. Can you catch the ball? Are you a hands catcher? And I know at times you may not be able to catch the ball with your hands. You got to body it up. I get that. But when you do catch with your hands, are you struggling to catch the ball? Does it seem like you're fighting the ball to catch it? Some guys do. You look at some guys and you're like, man, that guy's struggling to even though he catches it, but he struggles to catch it. Other guys just plucks it out the air and keep running. Those are the type of guys that I want. So I narrowed it down to 5. Now, there's more guys out there that could potentially go in the first round. And some of these guys that I have here may not go in the first round. Mm-hmm. But these are 5 guys that I looked at that I thought, these are guys that I believe would fit well with what the Titans don't have. You look at Quentin Johnston out of TCU, big guy, 6'3", can run. He's a guy that can play the inside and the outside. Now, for him, he's going to have to learn, they didn't press him much in college. They don't press much in college anyway, but they didn't press him much in college. What he's going to have to get used to is those guys coming up and pressing him getting in and out of his routes. What I do like about him is that he high points the ball. He gets the ball. He uses all of that 6'3" frame, and he goes up and gets the ball. But not only that, he has good body control when he catches the ball, and then he gets a lot of yak. He's a guy that can catch a 5-yard hitch and can get an extra 10, 15 yards if you don't make the first initial tackle. And it's hard to tackle a big guy at 6'3". He's about 215, somewhere around there, 220. It's hard to tackle guys like that. A.J. Brown, Traylon Burks, one of these bigger, stronger guys. So he would also fit in the mode of what the Titans want to do. A bigger frame guy with a wider catch radius, which means the ball doesn't have to be perfectly thrown to him in order for him to catch it. So I don't think the Titans will get him. I think, one, because I don't think they're going to draft a receiver in the first round. And he's a first-round guy. Mm-hmm. He may be gone by the 11th pick anyway. But if he's not gone by the 11th pick, I don't think the Titans are going to pick him anyway. They have pressing issues everywhere else. The offensive line, potentially a quarterback. They can get a receiver in the second round because I think there are enough good receivers. This is not the class that we have seen in prior years where, we saw 3-4 guys go in the first round. This may not be that, but I think there's a lot of quality in this year's draft. So that's Quentin Johnston. Now, the guy that I really like is Jordan Addison. He was at Pitt first. He won a Biletnikoff at Pitt, put up huge numbers. He got to SC, and his numbers dipped some. Now, he was hurt. Mm-hmm. He was hurt. He spent last season, on and off the field because of his injuries. But when he's on the field, this is another guy that can play inside. He can play outside. He's not as big as Johnston from TCU, but when I watch him, he reminds me of, and I'm only saying this because it's sort of like I play with this guy, but he reminds me so much of Kevin Dyson, how he gets in and out of his breaks. He looks smooth in his running when he runs routes. He gets in and out of his break. He high points the ball. He make contested catches all the time. And then, as a matter of fact, this is a guy that has had since 2020, has had the most yards, I believe, in the slot of anybody in the national football, but in college football. Uh-huh. He's had more yardage based on, I think it's Pro Football Focus. From the slot, he's had more production than just about any college player within the last 2 years. I think the only person that had more production than him was Jefferson at LSU, but we understand why. But from the slot, because I think Jefferson played a lot in the slot when he was at LSU, because Jamar Chase was outside. But this is another guy. He's about he may be 6 feet. We'll know once he get to the combine. He may be in that 5'10", 5'11", somewhere around there. But still, he plays much bigger. He has an explosiveness. He doesn't have great down the field speed, but he has speed enough to get separation. Now, will he outrun anybody? Probably not, but you never know. Once you get in the combine, if he runs a sub 4.4, 4.45, somewhere around there, or if he blows the doors off at 4 flat or just below that, he can sneak his way into the first round. He might be a first rounder, depends on who's drafting at that particular space. But he's another guy that I enjoyed. Coming from Pitt, won a Biletnikoff, go to SC with Caleb, who everybody is just raving over for next year. And
the next Patrick Mahomes,
exactly.
Per some draft viewers.
And in watching Addison, I did see some throws that made you think of Patrick Mahomes at times. But we're going to put him to the side for now. But, Jordan Addison, I think he's going to be a really good player in this league, because the one thing I do really like about him is that he was at Pitt. He transferred from Pitt. So you got one type of offense that you ran at Pitt. And you had to learn this whole new offense. And then you transfer and go to SC, and now you got to learn another whole new offense. So that tells me that this kid can pick up quickly on what he needs to know. And he just didn't play in one position. He played outside and inside. So that's why because he's smooth, he high points it. He's not a burner, but to me, that isn't a huge thing for me. You don't have to necessarily be a burner. But what he does do is he gets separation, he high points it, and he catches the ball in traffic, which there's going to be a lot of traffic in the NFL. So you need to catch the football.
And that's a fair point. I'm being able to pick up on new schemes quickly, because when you're taken, let's say, first round, the expectation is that you come in and you help this team right away.
Exactly.
And I look at so many teams across the league. Obviously, the biggest difference maker is going to be your quarterback. But also who's catching passes from the quarterback and who's getting to the quarterback. And your pass rushers and your wide receivers, I think that has fallen suit in the NFL as being, also premier positions and franchise-changing positions. Look at Justin Jefferson. changed the Minnesota Vikings franchise. And maybe that's dramatic to say, but, it definitely
He's
elevated
helping.
the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jamar Chase helped elevate the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. Between those two guys, Quentin Johnson
Then
and
you look at
Jordan
A.J.
Addison,
Brown, what
A.J.
he's
Brown
doing in
elevated the
Philadelphia.
franchise.
Exactly.
When you look at Philadelphia being a fringe playoff team to then a Super Bowl contender, that is a franchise-elevating wide receiver. Do you see either of those guys, Quentin Johnson or Jordan Addison, that they are franchise-elevating receivers to that level that you would designate the 11th overall pick to?
Nah, because when you talk about those particular players, whether it be Jamar Chase, and we were, witness to the greatest offense in college football. I mean, we can go back and debate it, but what they were able to do with those trio receivers, I saw what those guys could potentially be in the NFL because they showed it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Johnston or Addison or any other of the three guys that I got written down, I don't know if they are franchise changers, but what they are is guys that can come in and be highly productive in this league, given if they go to the right team.
Complementary pieces.
Absolutely.
Coming up next, I want to get into two local guys that I know will be compared so much in this year's draft. Which is the better of the two, and which is the best option of those 5 wide receivers that you looked at that would be best for the Titans to take in the 2023 draft? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Every Wednesday at 8:30. Join Robbie and Rexroad for The Choice is Yours.
2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions.
They'll answer a couple of questions about life and sports. The Choice is Yours is built by Jarrett Companies. You have a choice. So when you have a need for site and utility work, fire protection, concrete and asphalt services, the choice is simple. It's Jarrett Companies. For more, visit JarrettCompaniesinc.com. The Choice is Yours. Wednesdays at 8:30 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With more all-wheel drive, more electrified, and the longest-lasting vehicles, Toyota checks all the boxes, like the best-selling Toyota Tacoma, with powerful off-road capabilities and the best resale value in its class. Now through February 28th, get 3.99 APR financing on a new 2023 Tacoma, with approved credit through TFS, excludes TRD Pro, and every new Toyota comes with 2 years no-cost maintenance. Get complete details at buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Willy Donick here for Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. The official 2022 stats are in, and the Pella brand is rated #1 by Nashville homeowners for windows and doors. One reason, Nashville homeowners selected Pella Windows #1 for the highest quality craftsmanship. Another key stat, Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville is also rated #1 for the brand that stands behind their product. If you need new doors or windows, the choice is clear. Choose the experts at Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Go to PellaofNashville.com.
Every piece of land has a story. Some write theirs behind the wheel of a John Deere 1 Series tractor, like the Upshaws.
This is my tractor Penny. It's all about attention to detail.
But the Nelsons love cruising around their expansive Montana ranch in their John Deere Gator UV.
We've been here since 1868.
While the Caggianos drive a John Deere zero-turn mower to keep their Long Island brewery looking sharp.
Don't call me, don't bother me. I'm going out to mow for a couple hours.
Run with us and start telling your story. Learn more at johndeere.com/radio.
I switched to Boost Mobile and got a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone. Want to know the best part?
It was free?
Nope.
The fact that it's on America's largest 5G networks?
Nope. It's the ding.
Oh yeah, love the ding.
Right? It's all about the ding. It's the dingarooski, the dingaroner, the ring-a-ding-ding.
Unleash your power to save with Boost. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone when you switch. Boost Mobile. Unleash your power.
And the ding.
Limited time offer. New customers only. Available on select networks. 5G not available everywhere. One device per line. Tax excluded. Additional restrictions apply. See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
Anyone want to tell me what happened?
Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to theGameNashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Is the free agent / draft receiver market situation as bad as it looks to me at initial glance here? It looks like this is a bad year.
Yeah, it is. It's not a great year. I actually talked to somebody when I was at the Senior Bowl about the draft, and he was like, not a good draft. He's just like, it's a really mediocre draft. And he literally said to me, like, we're looking at it, the strength is in the tight ends. They're like, that's not a good sign. Wide receiver, I asked him about the wide receiver. He said, look, we had bumper crop classes for a couple of years in a row. It's a little bit of a down.
There you go. That was Yahoo Sports' Charles Robinson on Robbie and Rexroad last week. And hey, this is kind of a brutal wide receiver draft, but there's two guys that I wanted to break down with you, D-Mase, and that is Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, two UT guys. And I want to talk about Jalen Hyatt first. My question about really, any skill player in this Josh Heupel offense is, was it you? Was it what you could do? Is it your skills? Or were you set up in the perfect system to do what you did? It's my question about Hendon Hooker. Was it Hendon Hooker or was it the system? That's kind of my question about Jalen Hyatt, too. Is it him? Is it the system? What is he?
Well, I'll tell you what he is. He's damn fast.
He's fast.
I'll tell you that. He has track speed. When you say track speed, this kid has it. They say he could possibly run a 4.2, 4.3 at the combine, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ran a 4.2. But that's not the end-all, be-all when it comes to being a wide receiver. You can run like to win, but if that's all you can do, then we're going to have a problem at the next level. Unless, you figure it out or whatnot. But
really, it seemed like with Jalen Hyatt,
yeah,
he was always open.
Yeah, he
was.
It was. I've never seen him, and this is the part that I think scouts are going to have to figure out with him in particular. You never seen him, at least I didn't. You never seen him battle tested. You never seen anyone get in his face. You never seen him, have to like fight through things on the field and whatnot. It just seemed like every time, and you said it, every time that we looked at him, he was wide open. Go back
by a mile.
Yeah, go back and look at it. He was wide open. And I'm looking at the defense like, what are y'all doing? Like, this kid, he's a fast guy. Why are y'all just letting him run scot-free? That's good and bad in a sense. I mean, it was good for UT and Jalen Hyatt. But when you're trying to project to the next level, I want a guy that's been battle tested. I want a guy that's been pushed around and see how he reacts when someone gets in his face. And I don't know truly what he is. Right now, I can tell you he is a fast guy that caught a lot of passes for a lot of yards while he was at his last year with Tennessee. Last year, you didn't know who he was.
No idea.
This year, Cedric Tillman goes down and this kid just blows up. Kudos to him. Kudos to him. He played big when they went against Alabama.
Probably the most jaw-dropping single-game stat line ever.
Exactly. He just
against Alabama.
Single-handedly beat Alabama. He and Hendon Hooker by themselves.
6 receptions for 207 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Exactly.
That is just superhuman. You don't see that.
That's a game for age. Receivers wish and hope for games like that.
Right.
And he had one in college. But, is he physical enough? Is he strong enough? Can he run the route tree? Because we saw him run a lot of vertical routes, and I'm sure he did run a route tree at UT, but you didn't see it much. It was screen plays. It was deep passes. He ran some hooks here and there, but you never seen him work the middle of the field or anything else. That was more so, to me, Cedric Tillman, and I get to him quickly. But if you do draft, or when you do draft Hyatt, Jalen, he's going to be a work in progress. I think he's a good player, tremendous speed, catches the ball well. I haven't seen him catch too many contested passes, and in the NFL, there are going to be a lot of contested passes going across the middle. These are the things that we didn't see him do. Not to say he just wasn't put in a position to do those things. But he's going to have to do them at the next level. So he's going to have to prove that he can. And this is what scouts are going to have to hope. They're trying to project. Can he do these other little things? Yes, I know he can run a deep route. I know he can run a post and get open. But can he do these other routes that we're asking him to do? Can he make contested catches? These are what these scouts are going to have to try to figure out. Now, Cedric Tillman, I like Cedric Tillman. it was unfortunate for him that he got hurt this past season. So he really wasn't able to build on what he did last year. He was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. He was basically their only bright spot as far as the receivers are concerned. He's big, he's physical, he can run after the catch, he make contested catches. He's more of a guy that I can see in the NFL that plays both the slot as well as outside. He's not a burner. I would love to see what he's going to run at the combine, but to me, that really doesn't matter as long as he's a sub 4.4, 4.5 guy, because he's 6'2", somewhere around there. So he can use his big frame. He catches the ball well. He breaks tackles. Now he too, just like Jalen Hyatt, he's going to have to learn the certain nuances of the NFL offense. You know, you're not going to be wide open like you were at UT. You're going to have to do a couple more things to get open. But to me, he's shown he's a good route runner. He learns very quickly. It's just unfortunate for him. He got hurt this year. I think his numbers this year would have been even better than they were last year, and he was a 1,000-yard receiver. So, to me, either one of those guys, I think Hyatt is going to be more of a project than Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman seems more of that gritty type of receiver, sort of like in the mode of an Anquan Bolton. Maybe not as good as Anquan, but he's physical, catches the ball well with his hands, catch the ball in traffic. Again, it was just unfortunate that he got hurt last year, so he wasn't able to build on his the season prior. Now, the guy that the Titans need to watch, and I may be a little bit biased in this, is Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. This is a guy that went to Western Michigan first, ended up transferring to Michigan State, had a tremendous year, not this season, but the season prior. This year, he was slow with injury. They had a bunch of problems on that offense at Michigan State. But there are a few things that I did love about him. One, he's another guy that you can put on the inside or the outside. He plays bigger than what he's probably listed. He doesn't have great speed. He has good speed. But also he high points the ball. He's shown he can catch the ball in traffic. He can play in weather, so it doesn't matter where you draft him, whether it be in a cold weather state or a warm weather state. He can play in both. But the things that I really love about him is that he's a dual receiver. He can also not only are you getting a guy that can play the slot, you can put him outside, but also you can use him as your punt returner as well.
So looking at this group of five, how many are first-round talent?
Oh, man.
We got Quentin Johnson
He's
out of
first-round
Ohio
talent.
State.
Yeah.
Jordan Addison from USC. Cedric Tillman, Tennessee. Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee. And then from Michigan State, what was his name?
Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed.
I think Quentin Johnson is definitely a first-rounder. Addison could be a fringe first-rounder, depending on what he does at the combine. I think Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman are both second-round guys, possibly even lower. And then Jaden Reed will probably end up being a late second-rounder, third-rounder, but more so that third-round guy. But depending on, too, if he runs well at the combine, if he's a sub 4.4 guy, that may push him up into the late second round, early third round. So the Titans still have an opportunity to get a guy like that. But then the other guy, Jackson Smith in Jigba, it's a shame that he didn't get a chance to play his senior season because that Rose Bowl that he had was off the charts, sort of like the Jalen Hyatt game against Alabama.
Right.
That was him in the bowl game. He had over 300 and something yards, close to 350 yards in one game. He lit it up, and then comes back the next following year, and he gets hurt early, and he doesn't play much. Luckily, they had Marvin Harrison Jr., and they had some other guys on that team. That's another guy we need to watch out for next year. Marvin Harrison Jr., that guy's going to be a legitimate first-round pick. So if you don't get somebody this year, be looking out for him next year.
And, of course, there is so much that's subject to change with the combine. Like we saw last year, Chris Olave's draft stock skyrocketed. He ran a 4.26 unofficial 40, and that put a whole lot of teams on notice.
Exactly.
So subject to change with what's going to happen with the combine, so on and so forth. But looking at just the college tape alone, who do you think best fits the Titan scheme and what resources do you think the Titans should allocate, if any, to any of these 5 guys? And of course, there's so many more receivers in this year's draft that could be eligible for the Titans to take in the draft as well. But just based off of those 5 guys.
Oh, man. I would say Jackson Smith and Jigba, but you don't want to bring a guy in that's been already dealing with hamstring issues.
Just follows the same trend for the Titans.
That's the thing that I don't want to. But Jordan Addison is a guy that I think would fit perfect in his offense because he can play inside, he can play outside. You can do multiple things with him. You can run reverses. He can throw the football. If you hand it to him on a reverse, he did that at SC. So he's a guy that can play multiple positions. But again, I want to see, what he runs. Again, that's not the end-all, be-all. But if he comes in there and he just dogs it and run a high 4.5, then maybe not. But if he's that sub 4.4 guy, then that could be a guy that fits well in what the Titans want to do. Because, again, he can play both inside and he can play outside.
D-Mase, our draft guru. Appreciate you breaking those down.
No problem.
And we'll continue to do this from now until the draft. D-Mase will pick his position group of choice, break down some of the top players that he believes is in this year's draft, how that will fit the Tennessee Titans. But coming up next, there's a team in the state that is heating up and a team that is cooling off really badly. We'll get into that coming up next. And, of course, your thoughts, 615-737-1025. And, hey, the Preds have a game tomorrow night, and it is your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty and Superbook Sports. If you guess correctly a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you will win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Predators home game. Participate in Pick to Click tomorrow morning at 8:45 a.m. with Robbie and Rexroad. It's 102.5 The Game in the Game Nashville app.
I think it's a really good move.
TD, it's never the offseason for ESPN's Teron Davenport.
I mean, that's something you obviously have to look at.
He's always talking about what's next for the Tennessee Titans.
Quarterback is a really important thing that they have to get determined.
Check out TD, Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 3, and Friday mornings at 8:30. Plus, the Talkin' with TD podcast.
Looking forward to that.
TD is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
It's Family Leisure's President's Day sale.
Wait, President's Day?
Well, it's in honor of all our presidents, and it means great deals for everyone.
Okay, like what?
Well, pools and spas for one. Family Leisure has the largest selection and guarantees the lowest prices anywhere.
What about grills and grill islands?
Of course, everything is on sale for 4 days at Family Leisure, just in time for spring.
Family Leisure, both locations, Antioch and Franklin.
Mid-State Sports League spring registration is now open. With 7 different sports to choose from, there is something for every player. Join Nashville's largest sports leagues and register as a free agent or bring your own team. Spring registration is now open for softball, sand volleyball, soccer, kickball, flag football, and basketball. For a full list of adult and youth leagues, check out midstatesports.com. That's midstatesports.com. It's no debate. Play Mid-State.
There's nobody on the planet who's as picky when it comes to diamonds as Genesis Diamonds owner Boaz Ramon.
I'm very, very selective on the diamond that I pick.
Indeed, Boaz will look at 2,000 diamonds on the world market and find maybe 2 or 3 that meet his criteria.
What most people don't know, and even jewelers, a diamond has much more than the 4 C's. He has maybe 20 C's.
Like the diamond's luster grade or brilliance level, its feathering, its inclusions, its table, its polish, its symmetry, even the diamond's own DNA or X-ray report, which most jewelers don't even know about.
I refuse to sell diamonds that don't go through our very, very strict criteria.
Which means a Genesis diamond is one she can be proud to wear, with the most sparkle and brilliance and real intrinsic value.
This is my goal, to go all over the world and find only the best hand-selected diamond.
Genesis Diamonds, setting the highest quality standards in the jewelry business. Green Hills and Cool Springs.
One reason for joining a company often becomes the most important reason for why you stay or don't. It's called work culture. At Cromwell Media, the owner of this radio station, we put a lot of energy into creating an environment that supports each individual and celebrates them as our teammates. This month, we're saluting Drew Chester in our sales department, who's enjoying his 5th anniversary. And Josh Kuhn, a part-time host on 102.9 The Buzz, passes the 3-year mark. Want to join Drew and Josh? Send us your resume at together@cromwellmedia.com.
when you want live and local.
If they were just better at the offensive line,
you can be a contender in the AFC again.
They've had more winning seasons than not. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game has you covered. Looking for some national programming?
why do I want to get a running back like that 5 more years?
The AFC now is so deep at quarterback.
Check out 94.9 The Fan. Nashville's home for all things sports is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan.
Hey Nashville, this is Paul Feinbaum and you're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. If I did, we'd fix it. And it's just, I think it goes back, and I don't understand it, to be quite honest with you. As much time as we spend with our guys talking about doing your job, playing your role night in and night out, and not letting emotion get the best of us sometimes when we, like I thought, again, we played hard in the second half, but when you're coming back, emotion starts to kick in. You still got to make smart plays, and we just had too many plays in the second half, and they gave us some chances. They did. They opened the door for us, and we pretty much had our chances, but every time we had a chance to come down and had to miss some rim shots, but I wish I knew the answer to that. I really do. As much as time as we spend to talk about it, I wish we could figure it out.
There you go. That was Tennessee basketball head coach Rick Barnes saying, I wish I had the answer about this team's issue with consistency. That's really been this theme for Tennessee basketball. We didn't talk about the consistency with the Predators all season long. It's the same kind of energy with Tennessee basketball. And this team is so confusing to me. You go out and you pretty much dominate the top team in the country in Alabama for a majority of the game, if not the entirety of the game. You hand Alabama, one of the best teams in the country, their first conference loss, and then you turn around and you lose by 12 to a Kentucky team that, although I think they've gotten better throughout the rest of the season, they still aren't this behemoth of Kentucky basketball that we are so used to them being. And even going further than just the last 2 games, this Tennessee team has beaten 3 top 10 teams in the country. They dominated Texas earlier this season. They beat Kansas. They beat Alabama. And then they struggled to beat average teams. They couldn't beat Missouri. Couldn't beat Vanderbilt. And then a Kentucky team that really, they're going to be a tournament team, but really doesn't seem like, the most special team in the country. So they can beat and really dominate some of the most elite teams in the country, and then they turn around and struggle against average to above average teams. So this Tennessee basketball team to me is very confusing. And going back to Rick Barnes, there's no consistency there. That's why I struggle to think that this Tennessee team can really make a run in the tournament, maybe the kind of run that the talent that this team has really should be making.
Well, it is interesting. I would say if you look at Alabama and Kentucky, the 2 words you got to remember every time: Rupp Arena, right? When you go to Rupp Arena and you're playing Kentucky, that's not a neutral site, and Kentucky is playing better. It is when you say you beat Alabama then lose to Kentucky. Well, where are the games? The game. There is no sport to me that has more influence of where the game is played than college basketball. The home court advantage is bigger in college basketball than any sport. I think the math and the numbers, the stats, that proves it over the long haul. So losing at Kentucky, there's I don't think there's any shame in that. But again, it's how you're playing. It's just interesting that they have not found their groove in a while, Tennessee. And they are missing a couple of guys, right? But they beat Alabama without those guys. Josiah Jordan-James being one of them, a guy that is a big part of what happens. But
and looked really good against Alabama doing it.
And but they continue to hold some pretty strong ratings. The committee came out with their top 16. I think they've dropped a notch there, but they're still in the top 16. I just think Rick Barnes is sitting there going, where's the team that I see when it's at their best? And so inconsistent, when you throw that out there, Caroline, I think about it's all relative to expectations, right? Because when they play as well as they did at the beginning of the season, they got everybody's attention, and they win against Kansas on a neutral site, and they throttle Texas, like you said. When they look like they do at their best, the expectations are, wow, Final Four kind of stuff. national championship kind of stuff. But they haven't looked like that in the last couple of weeks. And I wouldn't say any of these losses are bad. Like, Missouri's a good team. Vanderbilt right now, I know we're going to talk about them. They're playing at an NCAA level right now. You know, they're trying to be a different team than they were back in November and December. But they're playing really well right now. I would even argue that Florida, when they beat Tennessee and they had Austin Castleton, that's a pretty good team in Gainesville, right? So it's not like they lost to a scrub team, Tennessee. It's just that they're losing. They've lost. You put it together, they've lost what, four out of the last 6 against a pretty tough schedule. But Tennessee's expectation is higher. Rick Barnes' expectation is higher. But I still hold to it. I think they will rebound, and they might look back and say, okay, we went through our funk, and we came out of it, and now we're ready to make it happen here. But the question is, what kind of seed are they going to get in the tournament? How much have they hurt their seed with this stretch?
Well, I think right now, if you look at the way they've been playing, the good thing about UT is that they play great defense. Their defense is always going to give them opportunity to win games. Now, they shot the ball poorly versus Kentucky from the three-point line. They're not a great three-point shooting team, but they also didn't shoot well from the field. That's where, when you get in the tournament, you can get through the first round possibly like that, even maybe the second round. But once you get, in the Sweet 16 and above, your defense alone, you got to be able to score points. And you got to be able to run an offense that is efficient, and you can't go into these laws that UT is known for going into. You got to be able to score. Now, they got a good outside-inside, sort of combination, but when you get in the tournament, it's going to have to be a little bit more than that. Now, again, their defense is going to give them a shot to be in any and every game against no matter who they play. But it's, can you then generate the offense that you need when you're playing some of these top-tier teams? They did it against Alabama. They outplayed Alabama the other night. But can you do that consistently moving forward once you get in the tournament? That's a different story.
There's a lot of, that's a good observation, Derek. There's a lot of games that Tennessee has where they have a scoring drought within the game. First half against Kentucky. That's just happening to them. They had a bad stretch against Missouri, where the one game that they lost at home, that when you're thinking, Missouri's a good team, but you should beat Missouri at home, even though Missouri is, they got a lot of talent for sure. But Tennessee got behind in that game and had to dig out a big hole. They looked like they had it. But I think that's the fear, right? And when you have a team, you look at your roster for Tennessee, who are the guys that you can count on every night for offensive production? Anybody could have a cold night, but it helps if you have 2 or 3 guys that, are around that 40% three-point shooting, or a guy that's going to consistently get you double-double kind of stuff in the paint. I don't really see that with this team, right? They have a lot of different guys who on a given night can be really good, but I don't know that there's 2 or 3 guys you can really lean on. And so I would worry about a game where you just struggle to score in the tournament. But like you said, when you have defense the way they play, you're going to be in every game.
Yeah, their defense can give them a little bit of offensive wiggle room, where if you don't have the biggest offensive night, that defense will take care of it for you. But I think when we talk about expectation, Willie, that's totally fair. And I think the expectation for this Tennessee basketball team, rightfully so, after proving some of the Goliaths that they can beat in college basketball, like we mentioned, Texas, Alabama, Kansas earlier in the season. And even though Kansas at that point wasn't playing to the level that they are playing now they're a certified top 10 team, still, you took that team down. You have shown that you can beat those teams, and those are where the expectations have been set. You beat Alabama or you beat a Texas team like that, like you mentioned, that looks like a Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four kind of team. But you don't have the room to be able to have the offensive droughts that Tennessee has had over the last 6, 7, 8 games. You don't have that opportunity in the tournament to be able to go, so dark shooting. You don't have the opportunity to be so dark offensively. And that's what I think in so many of these early exits in the tournament, I attribute that is you have one bad day offensively. Well, that's all it takes is one bad day offensively for an early exit for a team that really could be equipped to go far in the tournament.
Right. And in that game, let's say you're in that game in a Sweet 16, right, or a second-round game, you got to win. What I'm not sure of when I watch each night with Tennessee, the good thing is they've got a lot of different candidates. The tough thing is I'm not sure the definition is quite there. Like a good basketball team, right, Derek? Let's take one of your favorite teams growing up, the Showtime Lakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had Kareem in the paint. You know where he's going to be. You had James Worthy, an option number 2. You had Magic distributing the ball to all these guys. You had Michael Cooper. Everybody had that defined role, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a given night, when I watch Tennessee, one night it could be Ziegler having the best game. Another night it might be Vescovi that's having a hot day from the outside. A Tyreek Key can be a great player one day. But none of them are there every night. So you go down the stretch of close. I'm not saying it can't work, but I'd like to see a little bit more of definition. Who is our offense running through in the big possessions in the second half of a close game? I think those are the answers that Rick Barnes is shooting for right now.
So Tennessee basketball has been going through some highs and some lows over the past couple of weeks, but another team has been going through a whole lot of highs, and we'll get into those coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
We are your home for every big pass.
Kevin Harvick takes over the race lead.
Big wreck.
Trouble turn 2. One car is around and hard into the outside wall.
And big win.
Austin Dillon wins at Daytona.
Catch every lap of NASCAR on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This week in Vanderbilt history, February 25th, 2010. The 16th ranked Commodores rallied in the closing seconds to get to overtime against Georgia, then held on to win 96-94 at Memorial Gym. An A.J. Ogilvy tip-in with 15 seconds to play in regulation to even the game at 77, after Vandy had trailed by 5 with 33 seconds. Then Jermaine Beal scored 6 of his career-high 28 points in the OT, and the Bulldogs' attempt to send it to a second extra period fell short as the buzzer sounded. Ogilvy scored 17 points with 10 rebounds as Vandy avenged a 14-point loss a couple weeks earlier in Athens. Andre Walker also had 17 and John Jenkins 14 points. Vanderbilt improved to 21-6 overall, 10-3 in conference play. Coach Kevin Stalling said he was proud of the way they kept battling. That Vandy team would go on to win 25 games and make it to the NCAA tournament. On this night, it took 5 extra minutes to get it done. Commodores 96, Georgia 94 in February 2010. This week in Vanderbilt history, I'm Kevin Ingram.
Hey, you think mortgage rates are still super high? Well, think again. Rates have plummeted to a 5-month low. Hey, Willy Donick here. Call my friends at Loan Pronto now to see how low rates are. It may be time to do that refinance you've been putting off, or time to get back to house hunting. If you're like a lot of people, you've got way too much credit card debt right now, and you're getting fleeced with 20+% interest charges every month, or maybe your current home rate is over 6%. So if that applies to any of you, listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto. Wipe out all those cards. Close in about 14 days and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. How does that sound to you? Right now, Loan Pronto is doing refis with APRs in the 4s. So call now to take advantage of this big rate drop. Get those credit cards to zero. Start that home improvement project, or get out of that 7% loan you were forced into last year. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Bob's Steak and Chop House in the Omni Nashville Hotel.
Hi, this is Chef Mark at Bob's Steak and Chop House at the Omni Hotel. Looking for a romantic dinner with that special someone? Be sure to join us and try one of our signature dishes, like our Australian cold water lobster tail, flash fried to perfection, and tossed in lemon butter. Did I also mention we've won the Wine Spectator Award of Excellence 7 consecutive years? Come join us for a memorable meal here at Omni, and be sure to ask for Chef Mark.
Attending an event downtown? Dine at Bob's Steak and Chop House in the Omni Nashville Hotel. Interest rates are rising, but not at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Replace your old unit fast before new regulations increase prices up to 20%. Get a new unit today at today's price and receive up to $1,500 off, or get 18 months of no payments, so the first payment is not until summer of 2024. At Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, all new systems come with a 10-year parts and labor warranty. Schedule your appointment now at springhillac.com. That's springhillac.com.
Start your day with a cup of Joe. Ugh, he's gonna think that's stupid.
Wait, what?
Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexrode are Robbie and Rexrode. There, that sounds better.
Thank you so much.
Weekdays from 6 to 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Having some fun in the midday.
Okay, that's really fun.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
It's a good source of energy because it's live.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Hey, Preds fans, you can hang out tomorrow night before the Preds game at the Superbook Lounge and Landshark Bar and Grill Margaritaville on Broadway with 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Place your bets with Superbook and enjoy great food and drink specials. Plus, you can enter for a chance to win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. So Tennessee basketball, they proved that they were one of the best teams in the country in the first half of the season. As of late, drop a game to Kentucky. They've been swept by Kentucky this season. You lose back-to-back games and back-to-back buzzer beaters against Vanderbilt and then Missouri. I think that we're all looking at Tennessee as a team that really could make a run in March, but also has a lot to show for the second half of the season. But one team that has absolutely been heating up. How about those Vanderbilt Commodores beating Auburn over the weekend? Take down Auburn 67-65. Vanderbilt has now won 5 games straight. I'm not going to say that Vanderbilt is a team that, at least right now, they're a fringe team. They're probably going to be one of the first teams out, at least where it stands right now. But if they continue to win like this, looking at the outlook of the rest of their schedule, they go to LSU later on this week. That absolutely is a game that Vanderbilt can win. They've got Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. 3 games that they could win, 3 games they absolutely could lose. But where it stands right now, Vanderbilt is on track to potentially be a tournament team. And I think that that's something that Vanderbilt fans can be super excited about.
Well, there's no question. The last thing you said there, to me, is the most important thing. If you look, and I wasn't at the game. My son got to go to the game. I had a lot of friends that got to go to the game. And it certainly helped that Auburn has got such a great rabid fan base now. It's great to have Auburn's basketball fans engaged, right? I can remember some good Auburn teams back in the day. We look around and go, Auburn's pretty good, but where are the fans? Nobody cares down there. They only care about football. But I think Bruce Pearl has energized that fan base. That's probably the best thing that he does, right? He really gets people going, for sure. So Auburn brought a bunch of people. But I loved the sounds of Memorial Gym on Saturday night. That was the atmosphere that place could be. And there was a little bit, that term Memorial Magic was getting thrown out there. It hasn't been thrown out there much over the last 5 or 6 years, right? But now you got a couple of things going on. You've got buzzer beaters. You got quality wins. You've got a feeling that no matter who comes in there, you got a chance to win. That's the feeling that you're wanting to create if you're Jerry Stackhouse. So what I like is they're playing at an NCAA level. So that was an exciting win against Auburn. I don't know if you guys watched that game, but, man, every possession was contested. It was tight the entire game, and it went down to the very last play. That was good stuff.
Yeah, it was, and you look at this team and what they've been able to do. Auburn right now is reeling. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, so they're a team that's not in a good place at this particular time. But if you're looking at Vandy and say, a month ago, you would have never thought that this team would be in the position that they're in now, on a 5-game winning streak, and it potentially could be 6. I know you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, but you're going against LSU, who's
they stink.
Yeah, they're not.
They're
a good team.
so
but,
bad.
You're going down to LSU, and you got to play them at their arena. But Jerry Stackhouse, Coach Stack, has gotten this team to at least the last 5 games. They've held 3 opponents under 65 points in that stretch. So they're playing good defense. Now, the Florida game was 88-80, so they gave us some there, but they showed that they can score as well. They got the big fella back, and I think that's what's really changing it all. Now that Leon Robinson is back healthy, this team can start to be more of the team that I think many thought they could be at the beginning of the season. that they could potentially be a tournament team, and it seems like they're well on their way to being a tournament team. Now it all depends on what they do in the SEC tournament. I think if they win 2 games convincingly, and even if they lose, get put out, I think if they show enough during the SEC tournament, I think that would get them into March, the big tournament in March.
Yeah, and Derek, you know how I like to start looking at the field. In the next week or so, I'm going to have a much better – I'll have the data together. And I do this every year whether Vanderbilt is in the picture or not. But it is interesting. I've started to look at their resume a little bit because I didn't even want to get my hopes up yet. That game on Saturday to me was the marker. Win that game, and now you can start talking about the bubble, right? In fact, even Joe Lunardi, I think, has Vanderbilt in the teams considered now. Like, I don't think he was even considering them until this last week where they took care of business against South Carolina and then they beat a quad 1 opponent. And you're right, Auburn is struggling. Part of it is because this league is really tough.
And they've lost a lot of close games.
They've lost some very close games against good teams, and they still have some tough games left. Bruce Pearl is going to be sweating a little bit, but they have some very good ratings for Auburn. They're an NCAA tournament team. They're an NCAA team. He always is sweating. You're right. He's perpetually sweating. Right? No question. There's a picture of him in the dictionary which says guys who sweat. He's in there. But Vanderbilt now, they have the 4th best strength of schedule in the country. I'm looking at warrennolan.com. So even though their record is 15-12, the strength of schedule definitely is something the committee will circle. What's weird is their net. For years and years, it was the RPI everybody talks about. But now that's sort of been replaced by the net. I don't even know what is different about the net. I haven't had anybody really explain to me what that means. But their net is 88. That's not real good, right? But their RPI is 47. That's a bubble type of RPI. And strength of schedule, that's a really good strength of schedule. And they're starting to put together the quad 1 wins. They've got 4 quad 1 wins. They've got 3 quad 2 wins. They've got a bubble type of resume, but they're sort of sneaking up on all these other teams that Joe Lunardi and the bracketologists have been watching for the last few weeks. It's like Vanderbilt hasn't been in the discussion. So now they're in the discussion. So as you guys mentioned, they've got LSU. That's a team that if you can't beat them, it won't help you to beat them in your resume,
but it'll
really hurt you if you lose to them. So that's an important one. And then you've got Florida at home. We mentioned Castleton, their best player, big man who Vanderbilt beat down in Florida while he was healthy, but he's got a broken hand and he's out. So that's affected Florida a lot. Beating them without Castleton is not the same as beating them with Castleton. And then at Rupp, which is an enormous game, and then Mississippi State is another team that is getting a lot of bubble talk. I think Vanderbilt has a better resume than Mississippi State right now when you consider the strength of schedule. But that will be a big swing game at the end. So if they can go like 3-1 down the stretch and put themselves in a good position with a win or two in the SEC tournament, I think they're going to be right there. But and to me, they look like an NCAA tournament team when I watch them. It all starts with Robbins. And then the other guy that's really surging right now is Ezra Magnon, their point guard, who hit the buzzer beater on Saturday. That guy can play D. He is all over the other team's point guard. He makes great decisions with the ball. He's not a huge scorer, but, man, he can really make them go. So these are things that weren't really in the discussion early in the season, but it's really coming together for Jerry Stackhouse's guy. So it's pretty exciting. And so let's see what they can do. They're playing significant games down the stretch, meaningful games, and so that's a big step in the right direction.
And to your point, Willie, it's good to see Memorial Gym look how it looked this weekend against Auburn. It's time. It's overdue for Memorial Gym to look like that, to feel like that, and for Vanderbilt basketball to be relevant again and competitive again. 615.
I want to see it full again on Saturday. Saturday they've got a home game against Florida. And that's another one. Now Florida won't have as many fans there as Auburn did, right? Especially now that their big guys hurt. That's kind of sagged a little bit. But I'd like to see a good walk up there. I'd like to see the Vanderbilt fan base really respond. That place needs to be packed on Saturday because it's exciting to watch them right now.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Teron Davenport will join us coming up next. It's Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase, 1025-1063 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Stop! Are you about to pay too much for new furniture? Then you need to come by Social Furniture on Charlotte Avenue in Nashville. Their President's Day sale is going on now. You can buy your new furniture today and get it today. But you do not have to pay today. During Social Furniture's President's Day sale, they have special financing for up to 60 months with no money down. Sectional sofas, mattresses, dining sets, bedroom sets, and more are up to 50% off. At Social Furniture, they say yes, yes, yes.
Attention all fire and safety line experts. Middle Tennessee's fastest growing fire protection company is looking for experienced service technicians, designers, and sprinkler system experts like you. Tired of working for a large corporate employer? Work for a company where you're more than just a number. Jarrett Fire Protection is owned and operated by Nashville natives and wants to invite you to grow with their amazing team.
Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett, owner of Jarrett Companies. I'm looking to hire experienced sprinkler experts and will offer a sign-on bonus of up to $5,000 for certified professionals. In addition to our great benefits that include a 401k match, PTO, and top pay with annual bonuses, we will also provide you with the top-of-the-line tools, trucks, and equipment that you need to grow your career. Our customer base is large and business is booming with many opportunities for advancement. Give us a call or go online to jarrettfire.com and apply today to become a member of our family and protect our community. That's JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, where we are above and beyond industry standards.
Your Game Center update.
This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. The Nashville Predators split their back-to-back this weekend against the Florida Panthers and the Minnesota Wild. Nashville finds themselves 7 points outside the playoffs with 28 games remaining. Ryan Hartman tipped in the game-winning goal on Sunday with 20 seconds left.
Spurgeon keeps it in right point. Brody in left side, puts it towards goal, and it bounces in. A double deflection, and the last deflection was off Ryan Hartman's body. 4-3 Wild with 20.4 seconds left in the third.
And Preds prospect goaltender Yaroslav Iskarov was named the AHL Player of the Week this afternoon. He went 2-0 last week with a .96 goals against average and leads all rookie goaltenders with 19 wins this season. And over in NASCAR, it was Memphis native Ricky Stenhouse Jr. who won the Daytona 500 yesterday. Stenhouse Jr. broke his 199 race winless streak. And the Vanderbilt men's basketball team has now won 5 in a row with 4 games remaining in the regular season. They'll head down to LSU for a matchup on Wednesday. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Nate Kieser for 1025 and 1063 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 1025 and 1063.
A gunny performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
Who is pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willy Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personalities of all time.
On 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
with no further ado,
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We are live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios, streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook Sports. Teron Davenport, TD, joins us now. TD, I know you're busy this time of year, so we really appreciate your time, appreciate you for joining us. So there's been a lot of chatter about a potential Ryan Tannehill trade. Of course, the report last week that the Jets could potentially be interested in trading for Ryan Tannehill. What's the latest that you've heard on that? And do you think it really could be a legitimate possibility that the Titans would trade Ryan Tannehill away?
Yeah, I think it could be a definitely possibility. I don't think it's likely, but just like anything else, with a new GM coming in, you have to look at all things. And we know what Rand Carthon said, that he wants to continue to evaluate everything. But I haven't heard that any trade is imminent. I know there is interest from the Jets, but from what I've heard and what has been reported is he's the third or fourth option after a Derek Carr, after an Aaron Rodgers.
So, TD, with that being said, it sort of seems as if, or it's being put out as if the Titans are looking to make a move at quarterback. So if they do make that trade, not to say it's going to happen, because I think it's more likely that it doesn't than it do. If indeed it does, do you think then they move up in the draft, or do you think they stay put and try to get a quarterback, say, in free agency?
Yeah, I think, that's the whole thing that's really interesting is you have a couple teams above the Titans, obviously within the division in the Colts and Texans, who are very likely to move up to 1. So if they're going to move up, if it's a guy that they fall in love with, they're probably going to have to make a trade with the Bears. And we saw the reports that, there has been contact. And I think if they were to do that, the guy that they would pick is probably C.J. Stroud, just because of the placement and accuracy perspective. I think that's the one that they would go for. But I don't. It would take a lot of guts for Rand Carthon to come in and one of his first things he does draft personnel-wise is move up to the number 1 pick and take a quarterback. So I don't think it's likely. There are some guys, a lot of people like Will Levis. Some people say that he is going to be the top pick just because of the measurables, his ability to throw the ball 70 yards with ease and the athleticism. He's drawn comparisons to Josh Allen. So that's a guy. Obviously, you look at, as I mentioned, Stroud, Bryce Young. Anthony Richardson is a name that's really intriguing because you wonder if they stay at 11, he will likely be there. And he's someone who a lot of scouts and personnel folks feel has the most upside out of all of these quarterbacks. You watch him as very Cam Newton-like. So there will be some options there, but I doubt they do anything.
Now, TD, another position that is of need for the Tennessee Titans, and I sort of did my breakdown of 5 guys that I thought, had possibly the ability to be drafted by the Tennessee Titans. The wide receiver position. I look at Jordan Addison, or whether it's Quentin Johnston. I think Quentin Johnston may be gone before the Titans pick at 11. But if he's not, then, I can't see them drafting a receiver after they drafted one last year. They may go offensive tackle or, like you said, a quarterback. But what receivers because my 5 was Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith, Njigba, Quentin Johnston, and then I threw the 2 Tennessee guys in, Jalen Hyde and Cedric Tillman. But my dark horse was Jaden Reed. I don't know if you've watched much of him, but I just like his makeup. I like what he's able to do, not only from the receiver position, outside, inside, but also he's a excellent punt returner. So just Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, which one of those guys you think fits best with the Tennessee Titans?
That's a good question. Quentin Johnston is he's intriguing, right? Because you see the wild plays and you see him as far as the size is concerned. But the thing that I wonder is, can he really play to that size, right? Because how many times do you see him jumping up to catch the ball, but he's catching it at his waist or at his chest rather than truly high pointing it? You see that a lot. So that's something. And then there are times where he disappears in games. So I don't know if I would use that pick on him. Jordan Addison is very impressive, a smooth operator as far as the routes are concerned. I know his initial receiver coach when he was at Pitt won the Blendenkoff Award, Brennan Marion, and he spoke glowingly about him as far as his work ethic and just what he does from day to day, catching the ball really well with his hands. So if I had to go out of the 2, I would say Addison. I like him better as a product. I think he's more polished. But to be honest with you, the receiver I like in this draft, I probably wouldn't go at 11. But if you haven't gotten a chance to watch Zay Flowers from Boston College, check him out. He's so impressive. He reminds me of, I'll give you an old name, Joey Galloway. He reminds me of Galloway, Brandon Cooks, as far as the ability, especially Cooks, to play above his size. He's a guy that will make contested catches, even though he's 5'10", very explosive, and that's the Joey Galloway part that really stands out to me. So he's someone, and no wonder you mentioned Reed. There are a lot of similarities between him and yourself, right? Even though because he is a Spartan, correct?
Absolutely. But I had to throw that in there, Jaden Reed. Yeah, because what I've seen in the last 2 years. Now his numbers dipped this year, but they had a lot of problems on offense in general. But his ability to play inside, outside, and double as your punt returner, I think that makes him valuable.
Yeah, and he impressed in Mobile. He was one of the guys that, consistently was being mentioned as someone who, quote-unquote, made some money. So you saw him running by DBs and stuff like that in one-on-ones. I know that's, slanted towards the receiver, but still he was running by him, and that's something to make note of.
Teron Davenport is with us. And, Teron, I think it's intriguing. I know the reports are that Derek Carr visited the Jets this weekend, and so that's one to really watch, I guess, this week to see if anybody bites early. It's the old saying, right? A bird in hand is worth two in the bush, right? Because he's the one guy you can jump in and sign, and right now you can say, I got my guy. And the Jets are so pivotal in that because if they don't, they're going to be in the sweepstakes for Aaron Rodgers, and that's uncertain. Who knows where that's going to go? But I'm curious in particular if the Jets like what they saw over the weekend, had maybe on the same page with numbers, because that would take them off the board for what looks like it could be a very crazy carousel with quarterbacks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And additionally to being the bird in hand, he's the guy you don't have to give up draft capital for outside of Garoppolo, right? You'll have to. He's a free agent, but I'm curious how that works because there's so many dominoes. Because you look at Nathaniel Hackett coming on to be the OC, and now people are drawing ties to Aaron Rodgers, and we know he's on his darkness retreat. Must be nice to do that, I guess. But you got that, and then you look at Todd Downing becoming the pass game coordinator there with the Jets, and now people are drawing parallels to Ryan Tannehill. So that Jets part of it is really integral as far as when you look at the veteran quarterback carousel that could happen, and I think that's where it starts. But we'll just have to see how it all falls into line.
Right, and if you're the Titans, I'm curious if there have been any conversations just behind the scenes of just sort of trying to gauge what the market would be if you were to even consider. And like you said, I'm with you. I don't think it's likely that the Titans would trade Ryan Tannehill, but I think just out of due diligence, just gauging what somebody might offer for him would be important information to have. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. You definitely want to know, right? So you put the feeler out there. But, honestly, this is another reason why you don't come out and say, hey, he's not the guy that we're going to have, because you don't want to show your hand, which is, I don't know why the Raiders did that, and look how it backfired. They weren't able to get any compensation for him. They had to release him. But I think that's definitely something that you want to kind of put a feeler out there, see what type of interest could be generated. But I think it comes down to what's your decision, right? Are you going to next year go all in for a Drake May, for a Caleb Williams? And if you're going to do that, obviously you don't want to punt on this season, but you want to get as much ammunition to move up so you could go get that guy. So it's a lot of things at work, and that's the interesting part of this because you have veterans on the team, Kevin Byard, right? Guys that deserve to be on a winner, but how much can you win right now with Ryan Tannehill? And that's what they have to figure out.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. Last one from me, Teron. You said Tannehill is the third or fourth option for some of these teams because you have to trade for him, right? It's not anything. You're gauging his talent and where he is in his career, but it's also you have to compensate the Titans if you want Tannehill to be in your mix. So let's give a hypothetical that the Jets don't sign Carr. Then they strike out on Rodgers. Garoppolo signs elsewhere, and they're sitting there in the middle of the offseason going, man, we still have Wilson. We haven't gotten a new quarterback. We want a new quarterback. So if it's late in the offseason and some of these other dominoes have fallen and the Titans are blown away for a trade offer for Tannehill, the question would be if you're considering this for the Titans, what are the other options? Like, who would be your quarterback in a scenario where you consider trading Tannehill?
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. So it's like, okay, do you want to go into a year with, a Jacoby Brissett, a Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback? And, yeah, it'll save you, around $18 million in cap space. But even trading him Tannehill, that doesn't mean that all his money is off the books. That 18.8 is going to be there regardless. So that trade offer is going to have to be pretty significant for them to move off of it, because if you do that, right, and you turn around and you sign a Jimmy Garoppolo, for instance, who's probably going to be $24-25 million, now you're at 25 plus 18, 43. Is it really worth, going up $6 million? Can you do that? I don't think there's a difference enough to do that, to be honest with you. So you have to factor that into play. And then also, like I said, as a GM coming in and even as a coach, right, Mike Vrabel, Rand Clark, and they have to be able to look these guys in the face and tell them, hey, we're going to do everything we can to give you guys the best shot to win now. No player, no veteran's trying to hear, hey, next year is one we're going to – no. This is the year we're working for. Let's win this year. That's the mindset of each of these players.
TD Teron Davenport is with us. We appreciate you, TD. We'll chat with you next week.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you. And let me plug, I'm down here in New Orleans at the HBCU Combine. Make sure you guys check it out throughout the week. There's the Legacy Bowl. Yeah, there's some guys down here. Definitely some guys that could play. It's a great opportunity. I'm a former HBCU player, so I really love the fact that these guys are getting to be showcased. So check it out.
Appreciate that, TD.
Awesome.
Enjoy it down there. Enjoy the food. Safe travels home.
For sure. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up next, an interesting coaching move in the NFL. Why would he make that move? And also, what does that mean as far as the Titans are concerned? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Your home for MTSU basketball is 94.9 The Fan.
Three ball, yes, sir!
All the big shots and moments live here. MTSU basketball is on a station built for you. 94.9 The Fan.
Man, I know you're out there listening to me right now, so I need to tell you something about Cool Springs MD. Over the years, more men have started to seek help for hormone deficiencies and imbalances, and Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and his wife Daphne, along with that experienced staff, give men the treatment required to improve their quality of life. Cool Springs MD services have already helped many men of Brentwood, Nashville, and the surrounding areas in Tennessee with improving their immune systems, energy levels, cognitive functions, and more. They are there to connect you with the medical care you require to have a healthy and enriched life. There's no better time now to achieve a healthy lifestyle. So what are you waiting for, man? Give Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and Cool Springs MD a call today for an appointment. Here's the number, 615-486-3458. Put it in your phone and save it, 615-486-3458, or visit our website at coolspringsmd.com.
Now's the time to get a great deal on select Kubota compact tractors, rated #1 in durability and owner experience. They're designed for easy operation and feature performance-matched attachments. Right now, put 0 down and get 0% APR for up to 72 months, plus save up to $800 on select equipment. Now through June 30th. See us or go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
Visit Coleman Tractor Company, your local Kubota dealer in Clarksville, Nashville, Paris, and White House today.
Women make up 14% of all engineers. That's a 25% increase since 2016. Celebrate Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day with Play Like a Girl on February 23rd. This local nonprofit is dedicated to leveling the playing field for girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics by leveraging the skills gained from sport. To become a mentor, donor, or volunteer, visit iplaylikeagirl.org/mentor.
When that door closed behind me and I was free, the main thing I wanted to do was just re-enter society, get a job, and see my family.
It's okay.
There's a new state office of re-entry in Tennessee, specifically to help folks like me get jobs. Go to tnworkready.com or visit your local American Job Center. Re-entry is a normal thing, and it's okay.
Brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
tnworkready.com.
Meet Joe A,
Hi.
Joe B,
Hello,
and Joe C.
What's up?
3 everyday Joes perfecting their banking with Chase. Joe A is locking his lost debit card with the Chase mobile app. Joe B is cruising toward his new ride with AutoSave. And Joe C's Chase banker is helping him budget to go back to school. Tools that help protect, support for what's next. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Messaging and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
We try to stay cool by being on social media.
I'm with it. I'm hip.
Follow us on Twitter at 1025thegame and on Instagram at 1025thegame Nashville.
Hey!
Oh yeah, and like us on Facebook too. Having some fun in the midday.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063, The Game. So I think a very shocking, at least to me, I was surprised by this move. A shocking coaching move in the NFL that came out over the weekend. Eric Bieniemy has been named the offensive coordinator in Washington. Now, I know it's not a lateral move because Eric Bieniemy is going from not being the primary play caller in Kansas City to being the primary play caller in Washington. I get it. That is a step up. But I'll go back to when the Titans requested to interview Eric Bieniemy. And Josina Anderson came out and said Matt Nagy has not yet responded, and Eric Bieniemy is focusing on head coaching positions. And I understood that. If Matt Nagy wasn't interested, maybe he looked at it like Eric Bieniemy is looking for his next big move, his head coaching opportunity. Because he's had several interviews over the last several years. He interviewed for 5 vacant head coaching positions last year alone. So maybe Matt Nagy looked at it like Eric Bieniemy is going to get a head coaching opportunity. Matt Nagy could be promoted to offensive coordinator. So those two wanting to stay put in Kansas City until that next really big, obvious step presented itself. I understood that. But what I don't understand is Eric Bieniemy said to the Titans, hey, look, I'm looking for head coaching opportunities. And then takes the offensive coordinator job in Washington. And Ron Rivera has already come out and said he wants Sam Howell to be the starting quarterback in 2023. Sam Howell has 19 pass attempts in the NFL. Ron Rivera is on the hot seat. This really is kind of a prove-it year for Ron Rivera. Is can you get this team into the playoffs? Can you win games consistently? And the Washington Commanders could be going through an ownership change. So you have an unproven young quarterback. You have a head coach that I think if you don't have a big year this year, Ron Rivera could be on his way out outside of Washington, and you could have a new owner looming. I don't see how this is an attractive job for Eric Bieniemy. I understand the really unfortunate truth that Eric Bieniemy is facing, that he has to get out of Kansas City to prove himself, which I say it's unfortunate because Doug Peterson, Nathaniel Hackett, Matt Nagy, all guys who didn't call plays in their former stops, that was a benefit of the doubt that they did get, not being primary play callers, and now they move on or went on to head coaching opportunities. So I understand that, but for Eric Bieniemy to turn the Titans away and to say, I want to focus on head coaching opportunities, and then to accept what I think is a very unattractive job in Washington, I don't really get it.
Yeah, it's one of those decisions that is made, and you look at it from afar like, man, why is he leaving? Why is he leaving Kansas City to go to Washington, who doesn't have a proven quarterback? They have a few pieces. They have a hell of a defense. They got a few pieces on offense, but we know if you don't have that quarterback, it's going to be hard to try to win in the National Football League. So you look at it and you say, why did he do that? Well, I mean, you understand why he did it. Because, unless and until he gets out of Andy Reid's shadow, which is, I think, unfair because, again, none of this is being thrown around when it comes to Nagy or Peterson or anybody else that coached under Andy Reid. The knock on them wasn't, they are Andy Reid disciples and Andy Reid called the plays. No, they were just another line in line with the Andy Reid tree. Hey, these guys have been successful. It's just another guy off the Andy Reid tree. So to me, I don't know why I say I don't know why, but it's sort of pointing to we know why. But it's just unfortunate because if he doesn't leave Kansas City, he may not ever get a coaching job in the NFL. And that's unfortunate because he's been, however we want to slice this and however we want to say, well, Andy Reid had sailed the offense. He's been there, Eric Bieniemy, the full 5 years Patrick Mahomes has been quarterback. He has had the label offensive coordinator ever since Patrick Mahomes has become the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And in that time, this team has basically ranked in the top 5 when it comes to offenses, all 5 years. And, matter of fact, they won 2 Super Bowls in the process.
And been to 3.
And I understand Andy Reid getting the bulk of the praise. But it's not like Bieniemy is just sitting over there not doing anything. You know, Andy Reid, there's a reason why Andy Reid, brought up Eric Bieniemy's name after the Super Bowl. That was one of the first names he brought up, because in his mind, he feel that Eric Bieniemy has done enough, and it shouldn't be like a thing you hold against me just because I am a part of the Andy Reid tree. Nobody else had to go through this. We see guys getting head coaching jobs that only had 1 year of success. This guy's had 5 years, however you want to slice it. He's been a part of a system that has been very successful over the last 5 years. And he can't get a head coaching job anywhere. He has to go get an offensive coordinator job in another division with a team that doesn't have a quarterback. That's how desperate this situation, I think, has become for Eric Bieniemy, that he has to take that job to potentially get a shot at being a head coach. And if that doesn't go right, he's never getting a head coaching job. They're not going to look at it and say, well, he don't have a quarterback. He doesn't have this. No, they're going to look at it. He took the job. They didn't do well.
Yeah, I do think that happens a lot to a lot of assistant coaches over the years, where you go into a situation and you just don't have a lot of luck with the horses, with the health, the quarterback, the personnel to succeed. So that is the gamble. And you're right. It doesn't seem on paper like Washington would be the place to go. But, Derek, I'm with you 100%. I think he just reached a point. He said, you know what? I've got to leave. And here's a team that wants me. They've offered me the job. I'm not interviewing and competing and have uncertainty. They want me to be their guy. And I think that was enough for him to say, you know what? I like that. Here's a team stepping up. They want me there. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to show you that I can get it done. But who's the quarterback is a very important part of this here. But I wish him well, right? How can you not root for Eric Bieniemy for taking the leap of faith and saying, I'm going to show everybody I am a play caller, and I'm going to make it work with this team.
And it is the ultimate bet on yourself situation. Because I don't think anyone would look at what he's walking into in Washington and say, yep, that's a clear path to success. But he could look at it like, if Eric Bieniemy goes in there with, all of the dumpster fire going on with the ownership in Washington and with an unproven young quarterback in Sam Howell, if Eric Bieniemy can turn that offense into a top offense in the NFL, if Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera, in tandem, can get this team to the playoffs, then you could look at it and say, look, Eric Bieniemy proved himself in some of the I don't want to say the worst situation, but not a great situation. If he can turn that team and that situation into a successful situation, then he absolutely is going to be the hottest coach, potential coach on the market. It's a really, really tall ask. It's a really difficult situation going on in Washington. And I really hope that Eric Bieniemy is going to be able to turn this into the next step that he wants to take into ultimately being a head coach. I see some text in the text line, a lot of people saying, if Ron Rivera does get fired, then Eric Bieniemy the likelihood of being him named interim head coach is pretty high. But that's no guarantee that you're going to get the head coaching position the next year.
No, because let's not forget, this franchise is being sold.
Right.
So
they could want to clean house completely.
They could want to just clean house no matter what. And go a whole different way. So, like you said, Caroline, this is a truly a bet on me situation. I'm betting on myself. He does have a few, players on his team, McLaurin, Samuel and Dotson. But besides that, those are all pass catchers, and I'm sure he can elevate their production out on the field. But a lot of that hinges on how the quarterback turns out.
Right. Good luck. I really do wish him the best of luck.
Yes.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll get into your thoughts. We got a bunch of Predators thoughts, your Eric Bieniemy thoughts, Titan thoughts as well. Everything is on the table. We'll get into your phones coming up next. It's Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Want a chance to win tickets to an upcoming Preds game?
Yes.
Tune in to Robbie and Rex Road every weekday Preds game day at 8:45 for Preds Pick to Click. Guess a goal scorer and win.
I'll take Roman Yossi.
Matt Duchesne. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are referred so often. And by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. Download their app today.
Preds Pick to Click.
We are 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Nashville's best deal of the week is Bavarian Beer House at Opry Mills. Bavarian Beer House, Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, is full of fun, food, music, and most importantly, beer. Enjoy traditional German bratwurst, schnitzel, giant pretzels, and more in an Oktoberfest-inspired space. Visit BeerHouseNashville.com for their live music schedule. Get a $50 gift card for half off right now at thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last.
Hey, time to tell you about Lee Company, 615-567-1000. Proud sponsor of the Nashville Predators, who are back in action tomorrow night against the Vancouver Canucks, who are in town, 7 o'clock start. And Lee Company will be the title sponsor of our radio coverage that begins at 6 p.m. with Max Hurst. Lee Company is also ready to serve you. It's that time of the year, a little warmer out these days, which means the air conditioning unit will be full throttle within a few weeks. So, have you had your air conditioning unit checked recently? If you haven't, pick up the phone and dial 615-567-1000, or you can even make an online appointment at leecompany.com. Just get it checked. It's a great preventive maintenance move that's a smart move if you're a home owner. And another smart move is to take it to the next step. Get the year-round checkups with the home maintenance plan by Lee Company. It's what works in the Donick house. Our house has been around since 1913. We got to keep on top of these things. It saves money over the long term. The home maintenance plan from Lee Company, 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com.
Jewelry business, it's in my blood. I've been doing it all my life, and it's my passion.
Meet Daniel Sabalas, a third-generation jeweler at Genesis Diamonds.
This line of work, it's all about honesty and trust. It's about building relationships.
And that's what drew Daniel to Genesis, where it's all about education, transparency, and respect for each customer.
It's based on a family business mentality, and that's how we are. We're here to educate, to guide you, and we make it very easy. So we really go out of our way to educate customers in the right way. There's no stress level, there's no tension. The customer can feel that.
All this while providing the guaranteed best value price.
I've never seen a company that has the best price like this that I've seen anywhere. We are a powerhouse of diamonds.
Genesis Diamonds. No commission salespeople, no pricing games, no risk, no pressure, no cutting corners.
Genesis Diamonds is going to give you the best price, best quality, guaranteed, no matter what.
Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Golfers, tee it up at Edwin Watts Golf Shops and go farther and faster with the new G430 woods and irons from Ping. The Ping G430 woods introduce the next generation of speed with new face technology for longer and more accurate shots. The new Ping G430 irons are designed with pure flex technology for faster ball speed and more distance. Swing into Edwin Watts Golf Shops and get custom fit on the new Ping G430 woods and irons today. Edwin Watts Golf Shops, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee.
When you want all the
Going in and the score. Blast the score. He risks one, they score.
and don't forget the
Oh, what a stop. Sliding across to make the save. The backhander, nice stop.
when all you want is Smashville. We have you covered. Hear every Predators game right here. We are your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game is live and local.
And now, let's meet the starting lineups.
Robbie and Rex Road 6 to 9.
You are talking about a team that's building a roster.
Chase and Michelle 9 to 11.
He's still under contract.
It's not always X's and O's.
Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase 11 to 2.
Trades, free agents.
Let's get it going. I think this is a good hire.
And Stillman and Company 2 to 6.
I can give you one of the best coaches in the league.
And don't forget, we're your home for all things Smashville.
He scores!
Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Hey Nashville, this is Penny Hardaway, University of Memphis coach. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Haven't given your phones enough TLC today, so unless you two have a thought,
let's go.
To the phones. Craig Texan, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, 615-737-1025 if you have a thought, says, why do you believe that Eric Bieniemy was not interested in the Titans? I believe that he knew he was going to try to take some other opportunity, but why not the Titans? That's my question. And I only say that I don't believe that Eric Bieniemy was interested in the Titans because the Titans reached out for an interview. And the only thing that we heard that came from that was coming from Josiah Anderson, who said that Eric Bieniemy was more interested in head coaching opportunities, and then goes on to become the offensive coordinator with the Commanders. So that's my question: is why not the Titans? If you do decide ultimately that you're going to move forward with an offensive coordinator position, why not even respond to the request?
The only thing that makes sense to me, Derek, is that he looked at it at the time that the request was made and said, okay, they're also requesting another guy on our staff, Matt Nagy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm clearly not the guy for sure that they want. And who knows who else that they're interviewing. He probably has an agent that's sort of gleaning this, right? Who, trying to gain information. We know that ultimately the guy that was in-house was a clear-cut candidate and ended up getting the job. So I think he was thinking, all right, if I go in and interview with the Titans, I'm one of 5-6 candidates, however many people they talk to, and I can only assume that Washington made a play and said, we want you to be our guy. That to me, that's plausible. And of course, I'm sitting here, in Nashville. I don't know how it went down, but that would make sense to me. That I think he was one of many candidates for the Titans, whereas I think Washington was like, we want you to be our guy.
Yeah, and if I'm not, I think I'm correct in this. I think they gave him the title assistant head coach as well. They're giving him the title not only as offensive coordinator, but as assistant head coach. And that's that's probably something that the Titans were not going to give him. And he sort of looked at it and looked at, my opportunities for advancement. Would it be better in Washington or would it be better in Nashville? And obviously, from all reports, he will be named the new offense coordinator with the Washington Commanders. So I guess the title meant a lot to him because it probably gives him, like you said, gives him a little bit more responsibility. And then, Ron Rivera he's been dealing with health problems. He's battled cancer. And you just don't know how much longer he's going to want to coach, in this league. And then they're changing, management. A new group is going to come in eventually. So this could be a way for him to, if things go right, to potentially be the front runner for a job that is not vacant just yet. It could be vacant in the next year or two. And if he goes in and does well, because, again, he does have pieces there in Washington. Don't have a quarterback, but he has pass catchers. If they can figure out the quarterback position and he gets this offense to going, I don't even think they have to win. But if he gets this offense to going, then it opens up a few more doors for him as far as being a head coach. More importantly, it probably opens up the door that he's already in, to the room that he's already in as far as being a head coach. So I don't know if that was never going to happen here in Nashville.
Right.
He never was going to get the opportunity.
And that's a fair point, is the amount of responsibility. Not all offensive coordinator positions are created equally. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see that. There's a certain amount of responsibility that can be given or earned. Mm-hmm. He didn't get that in Kansas City. No. Now he gets that in Washington. He would not have gotten that here. Shane in the Borough texts in about the Predators and says, the Preds really need to quit hanging their hat on hopes and what-ifs. It's time to start building a team that is solidly in the playoff picture instead of a hopeful wild card. I think that's what every Predators fan wants to get to, is to the point where this team is consistently competitive in the playoffs. Now, how do you get to that point? You can start off by selling off pieces now, but that's the number one question is how do you get to that point where you are a team that is consistently performing in the playoffs? If it was easy, every team would be doing it.
Right, and every team does want to do that. So you could take out Predators and insert any other team, with that goal, that mission statement. So I think what the next 5 games are going to tell us is, and right now with the step back that they took over the weekend and the fact that they're 2-4 since the break, it's moving you towards a different pathway. Is how do you get there the fastest? You might have to take a step back to take the 2 steps forward down the road. And, how many steps back do you want to take? How radical do you want to get? I mean, these are all things that you have to consider depending on what happens between now and the end of the season. But that is the goal for every team. And they felt like they had a team that could get to the playoffs and have a better chance of succeeding in the playoffs. And they have not met expectations to this point in the year. And I'll say it like I did a couple of years ago. They looked way down and out with no chance. They won 20 out of their last 28. That's possible, but realistically, it is not probable at this point based on what they've done to this point in the season. But crazy things happen. That's why we love sports. But the question is how you get to that point.
One texter texts in and says, I don't understand the disappointment with Matt Duchene. He's at a franchise record for goals last year. What do fans want from the guy? He isn't part of the problem. The problem has come from the lack of development from young players and nothing from Granlund and Johansson. There's more to this text that I want to continue to get into. He absolutely is part of the problem. One of the roots of the problem is the top players not producing. The players who make the most money aren't producing. He's at a franchise record for goals last year.
What happened to the years before that?
And what happened this year?
Exactly.
That's what matters, is that you're not getting anything from him this year. Now, is he overpaid? Yes. Should he have been signed to the contract that he was signed to, both the years and the amount of money and the modified no trade clause? Probably not, but that's a David Poile problem. Mm-hmm. That's part of the problem as well. But don't act like Matt Duchene is not part of the problem of the best players not producing to the level that you need them to.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation. I would not separate Matt Duchene from the other group of guys. I do think Mikael Granlund and Ryan Johansson, you could have discussions about them too. Granlund in particular has taken maybe the biggest step back from the last 2 years, where I thought he was the glue and a guy that was really driving them, keeping them together, playing a lot of different things, not just with the points, but his impact on the game. And I think sometimes we get caught up too much in how many goals and assists a person has. That is very, very important. At the end of the day, you got to score, right? But how also do your top players enable you to win? What are they doing besides? If they're not scoring on a particular night, are they driving offense? Are they putting you in the offensive zone? Are they setting up the next guy to be successful? Are they getting beat defensively? All of these things go in. And Matt Duchene, to me, has been okay. I think I gave him a C- going into the break. And he surged. I think he's had some really good moments. You see what he can do when he's at his best. But he's just not the driving force that I think he was last year on a more consistent basis. Just talking about him. Has he upped his grade from C-? Yeah, I think he's more of a C or C+ maybe, but still not what I think he's capable of. And you could say that about a number of the players on the roster, which is why they're below what to me is the expectation level.
And when you're paid the amount that Matt Duchene is paid, the expectations go up.
It's higher. Yeah. There's more expected.
Absolutely.
I don't understand when people say things like that. It's like, listen, you may love the guy, and I get it, but the facts remain. If you have a season like you did last year and then disappear this year, what does that tell me? It tells me that you're not a consistent player, that the money that they're giving you, you're not playing up to that dollar amount. We look at you different than we look at everybody else that don't make the money that you make. You are one of the top 3 or 4 guys money earning wise. But your production doesn't say that. You gave one great year production, And before that, it was okay. And after that, it's been below okay. What do you mean he's not part of the problem? He is part of the problem that's going on.
What's the biggest critique, at least that I have, of this team? Inconsistency.
Yeah.
Some of your top paid players, Forsberg, Duchesne, Johansson, their problems are inconsistent. It's not a coincidence that your top guys, your core guys, your veteran guys, your highest paid guys are the biggest problem with this team. Inconsistency. Mm-hmm. But I want to continue our Predators conversation coming up next, because Pierre LeBrun said that David Poile was focusing on these 3 things to decide what he was going to do at the trade deadline. So what were those 3 things, and what did the Predators team prove? We'll get into that coming up next. It's Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
185! Every team needs a quarterback.
185! Take!
That's why we have
Hasselbeck, bootleg, rollout, toss, touchdown!
Tim.
You can run good plays at the right time.
ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck gives his expertise on all things NFL.
You evaluate players, and then you're turning them over to the coaching staff.
Every Tuesday at noon.
At the right time.
With Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase. Tim on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
The choice is yours. Wednesdays at 8:45. Brought to you by Jarrett Companies. Now hiring experienced sprinkler experts. Go to jarrettfire.com. JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, a company above and beyond industry standards.
The Nashville Sheriff is hiring correctional officers. Earn $52,500 after paid training and probation. Positions are available immediately. You must be 21 and over with a high school diploma or GED. Come, join our family. That's $52,500 with great benefits. Apply now at sheriff.nashville.gov/apply or call 615-862-8170. Earn $52,500. Stop searching. Apply now. The Nashville Sheriff.
Hey, you think mortgage rates are still super high? Well, think again. Rates have plummeted to a 5-month low. Hey, Willy Donick here. Call my friends at Loan Pronto now to see how low rates are. It may be time to do that refinance you've been putting off, or time to get back to house hunting. If you're like a lot of people, you've got way too much credit card debt right now, and you're getting fleeced with 20+% interest charges every month, or maybe your current home rate is over 6%. So if that applies to any of you, listen, you can get a quick, easy refi at Loan Pronto. Wipe out all those cards. Close in about 14 days and cut your overall expenses by $500 a month or more. How does that sound to you? Right now, Loan Pronto is doing refis with APRs in the 4s. So call now to take advantage of this big rate drop. Get those credit cards to zero. Start that home improvement project, or get out of that 7% loan you were forced into last year. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
One is smart.
This has just been a constant trend for this team.
One is funny.
That's right.
Funny looking, maybe. Chase and Michelle with Chase McCabe and Michelle Knezovic.
Are you listening?
I'm listening.
Everybody's listening.
Weekdays from 9 to 11. Presented by Hair Club. Hair Club. Love your hair. Live your life. On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Some teams are obviously buyers, other obviously sellers. And then still others are right there on the bubble. Does that list include the Nashville Predators?
Yeah, they've not decided yet what they are, but the clock is ticking. And here's what I would say from making a few calls today is that the next set of games, Thursday night against Boston, this weekend against Florida, and especially Sunday against Minnesota, those are huge games which could impact the trade deadline decisions for the Nashville Predators and GM David Poile. If they don't get on a heater like right now to salvage their playoff chase, I'm told that David Poile will be ready to listen to almost anyone on his roster if he feels that his team has no chance to make the postseason, whether that's Duchesne or Johansson or Ekholm or Granlund. I think he'll be in a position to listen on a lot of his players. That's if they don't get on a heater here. We'll see how they respond.
There you go. That was Pierre LeBrun last week before the Bruins-Preds game. He said, hey, these next 3 games, Boston, Florida, Minnesota, so key in what was going to drive David Poile's decision, or what will drive David Poile's decision at the trade deadline. They go 1-2 in that stretch, drop a clunker to Boston. They look great against Florida, and they lose 4-3 to Minnesota in the final few seconds of the game. I've made up my mind, but I think these 3 games, if David Poile was going to use these 3 games, as Pierre LeBrun reported, I think those 3 games, all signs point towards sell. This team just isn't good enough. And I know that there are plenty of games left in the season. I know you got 28 games remaining. You got to win 40. You got to get 40-ish points some way, somehow. Give or take 40-ish points some way, somehow. And that's just to set yourself up in a position to make the playoffs. Never mind competing in the playoffs. For me, I want this team to be able to compete in the playoffs. I want this team to be competitive in the playoffs. I want more from this team than just being able to skate by into the playoffs, so I am ready to sell. If Pierre LeBrun is reporting these last 3 games are going to be those 3 games, this set of games is going to be big for David Poile, I think this team told you all it needed to say. It's just not quite good enough to be competitive in the playoffs or to even make the playoffs at this point.
Well, I think what you have said for a while, Caroline, is, they haven't looked like that even before these 3 games, right? But since the All-Star break, I think that's the unfortunate part. Like going into the All-Star break, it looked like a team that was making a statement that they wanted to make a hard run for the playoffs, have a really good second semester, but they have not come out of the gate the way they wanted to here. They lost Philip Forsberg. Now, it's an interesting move they just made. They put Mark Jankowski on waivers today, and he's the only extra forward they have right now. And as we know, they just called up Phil Tomasino. I think they want Phil Tomasino to play for the rest of the season here. And so that leads me to believe, is there a chance that they've had some good news on Philip Forsberg? I don't know. That's something we probably won't know until tomorrow morning when the team gathers for the morning skate. They have the day off. They had the back-to-back games. So really, it's not all condensed into what happened over the weekend, although Pierre LeBrun is right. But look, David Poile, if he's smart, and he's been around forever, he's already been fielding the calls on probably everybody on his roster. What's this guy worth? Is there any interest in this guy over here? If we were to fall out of it, what are we doing? But, you're leading up to, you still have 5 games to go. I would be surprised if they made any moves before the deadline, but I would look to see what happens in these next 5 games. And if it continues on the track that it is, then I think that they'll see what's out there and if any moves can be made to help the team down the road. Now, if you're in that locker room, like I said earlier in the show, and you show up to work tomorrow, if you win the next 5 games, then that can change the script a little bit. But right now, the script is of a team that's just a little bit short of expectations, and short of this expectation, that means not making the playoffs. But look, 28 games, a lot can happen. But so it's different perspectives. But the point is, for Pierre LeBrun, he's dead on right. If you're David Poile, you got to do your job. You got to look at what the team has been to this point, and you got to weigh your options.
Now, Willie, even with that, okay, here's a hypothetical for you. Say this team find a way to get themselves into the playoffs, and say they have an early exit in the playoff once again. Then what do you do as a franchise? What do you do as a GM moving forward? Because it's like, okay, yeah, we got in the playoffs, so we can keep on playing this song over and over again, but we know how it's going to end. Eventually, we got to change the record. If y'all don't know what records are, it's that little vinyl thing, that big vinyl thing.
The thing that goes round and round.
Yeah, go round and round. Exactly.
Yeah.
But,
I've heard of them.
But, if you don't make any change, you get in the playoffs, then what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, as we sit here today, I'd love to be in that position, right? I'd love to be able to say this team could go, because Caroline, you said around 40. I don't know if it'll be 40 that you have to have points needed to get in between now and then. It's a sliding scale. It depends on how Minnesota and Calgary play. Does anybody else above them collapse? It does appear that everybody below the Predators has pretty much checked out. So could you get in at 95? Could you get in at 97? We don't know, but it's going to take minimum 37, 38 points. So what does that mean? 28 games? Can this team go 17, 8, and 3? They haven't really with each passing week where you haven't gone on a heater, they're gonna need to win 5 in a row or 6 in a row or 8 out of 10 to get back up to that pace. And are they capable of it? Well, I don't know. They've got UC Saros. If you get Forsberg back, anything can happen. But what's the probability of it? It's lessening with each week when they show you that they haven't, what they've been is much more likely to be what they are. So let's take your scenario, though, Derek. They make a run and they do get in and they lose in the first round. That's a great question, is where do you go from there? Because it still would look like you're not quite equipped to do what you want to do, and that's do damage in the playoffs. And it's well documented where they are with a lot of the contracts. I would say that, and we had a texter earlier about the young players. The one thing that I do like is I like where Cody Glass is headed in his career. Let's see about Phil Tomasino. I really like Juuso Parssinen as a young player. And Tommy Novak had a huge game yesterday. There's another young player that looks like he could be a nice little piece. We'll see. But it's not like they have no young players that are helping them at all. And we talked about how their farm system is ranked in the top 10 of best prospects, more like 10, 11, but it's not bad. It's not like they have mortgaged the farm and traded off a bunch of draft picks. They've got some first-round picks in the minors and in the junior level that look like they've got some promise. And
the idea of, if you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. That totally is true. You can go back to so many teams in the past that you didn't think were going to do anything in the playoffs, and they ultimately and get to the Stanley Cup final. Where it stands with this team, I don't want it to have to be a meltdown of epic proportions from the teams above the Predators in the standings in order for the Predators to just squeak into the playoffs. Because how much does ownership value getting into the playoffs? If that's all it is hey, just get into the playoffs, and if it's a first round exit, or maybe you win the first round, you go on to the second round. I don't know how much it truly is that ownership values making the playoffs. But let's say the Predators do barely squeak in, and then no changes are made, which I think there do need to be changes to this hockey club moving forward. Then making the playoffs just kind of masks a lot of the problems that I think this team is facing.
Well, I think changes will be made regardless. Changes are made every year. And look, I keep talking about Toronto. They keep losing in the first round, too, and they make a ton of changes. And they're probably going to have to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round to even get to the second round. Who will they play? Probably the Bruins. So, there's only a few teams that are really satisfied with how they are at the end of the season. But it's a lot better to make the playoffs than not. And I think there's something to be said of, did you get the most out of your team in a given year? And right now they're below that line. I think that's what's disappointing about this particular season. I wouldn't have said that, and I didn't say that about last year's team.
That's going to do it for us today. Stillman & Company is up next. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Peace.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
It's the final countdown on the Electronic Express President's Day sale. That means huge savings in every department at any of our convenient locations, including all 4K TVs, laptops,